And we're live. Hello, Sam. As usual, I guess we've already got a few viewers. You can join in the Discord for some pregame show. I don't know if I guess you're part of the show if you join, if you chat in Discord. I have not joined the audio chat, but that's my plan. Let's see, Minneapolis room, I guess, is where we'll be. So that's where we are. A bit late. Well, I mean, like 2 minutes. It's 6:18. You're right. I guess we could be better to be early. Altspace is actually the VR and HCI meeting, so you might have your Wednesdays mixed up. Tonight is the main VR, the main IGDA Twin Cities meeting, which is not typically in Altspace. We're usually just on Twitch here, where you see us, or actually, you're probably the majority of you are watching on. No, that's probably not true. Late, people might be watching later on YouTube.
If
Over
I talk in
time,
here, will I also hear myself in the stream?
yes, you will probably. So you need to like figure that out.
I muted the stream. Solved. What's up?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Bouncing between being very productive some weeks and not very productive other weeks.
Yeah,
Standard.
for sure. Yep. Do you mean on games specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. And remind me what you're working on. Are you still
Uh,
working
it's,
on?
the game is Not My Vault, which is like like asymmetrical co-op game. It's kind of somewhere to keep talking, nobody explodes. So, yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. How about you? What have you been working on?
I'm still slowly working a little bit here and there on the Thrive
Mm,
digital port, so mobile mostly.
yeah.
Although it was played last month on the playtest night, the
Nice.
third Wednesday, and that was a desktop build, and it worked pretty well. Like I had made it, I think, like the day before, maybe even just that day.
Does it have online play?
It does not have online play, which is the
Okay.
like the sad state of it. Yeah, that would be nice. So I'm also working a little bit, not as much maybe, but more managing the project and like task list for the board game arena implementation
Oh,
of
nice.
that game. So I don't know if
Do
you're
do they
familiar.
have to like do you implement your game yourself like in their API or do they implement it for you?
Yeah, so Board Game Arena is like, I mean, it's interesting. They do some games themselves, like as a company or whatever. I don't know how many people there are. They've exploded in terms of popularity in the
Yeah,
last,
makes sense.
year, and actually, we're just bought by Asmodee, so they're
Oh
not
wow,
independent anymore.
I didn't
Um,
know that. That's a big deal.
yeah, it is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so anyway, yeah. So they do implement some of the versions of the games themselves, but it's crowdsourced. So I mean, like the vast majority of the games have been implemented by other folks. And then I think sometimes when like especially if it's a popular game, I think they go in and like they fix bugs and stuff to maintain the
Yeah.
games. But I mean, it's really it's wonky because it's obviously web tech, so there's a PHP backend and it's closed source. You don't have access to the PHP, so you kind of like know what your classes have to look like and how they have to talk to these other APIs. It's poorly documented. It's really
Yep.
it's amazing that any games get made at all. And now they're getting made like at a rapid pace. I mean, they're releasing new games every week.
Yeah, I feel like I remember when it would just had like five, like it had like Catan and like Puerto Rico. I remember like 5 or 10 years ago or something. It was like 8 games or something, and
Yeah, my account is over 12 years old.
yeah,
So yeah, I joined like a long time ago, and I played. I think for a long time, my only games played were Puerto Rico and what's the other one? Race to the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
And Puerto Rico, I only have ever played one game, and I won it. So it says like on my stats page, it says it says like the number of times you played and the number of times you won, and then your percentage of winning. And it's bugged out, so it says like one time played, one time won, 150% wins.
Nice.
It's pretty good. So I'm afraid to play another game of Puerto Rico on there because
Yeah, it'll break
I wouldn't
it.
want, yeah, I wouldn't want to go lower than 100% wins.
Yeah, and even if you won another one, like I mean, maybe if you won another one, you'd go up to 200%. Who knows?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey Scott.
It's like you're muted,
Yeah, Scott's
Mr.
muted.
Gaff. Yeah. Oh, no worries. If you mean to be muted, that's totally legit.
Greetings.
Hi.
Greetings. Muted, unmuted, or unmuted, muted. Yeah, so that's really all the game development I'm doing. Although I am, this is I won't, I'll just be vague about it. But I'm talking about doing another game professionally, and it's an actual board game conversion, which is it's exciting, and it sounds like it's like the first in this particular publisher is interested in working with somebody that I've worked with before. So they already sent them physical copies of the games that they want to evaluate, and so they've got a stack of games, but they're gonna start with this one, and it's interesting because they're all games that I played as a kid. Like,
Oh,
so it's
that's
a
cool.
bigger publisher, and they don't have any digital versions of any of their games. So it's kind of interesting. It's a cool opportunity for sure. We'll see
Yeah.
if I. So I feel like I've gotten into this position a few times before in the past like 10 years, and um, every time it's like the publisher realizes how much it costs and then it
Yeah.
disappears.
Are there like any good like tools you use for kind of like are there any frameworks that are like board game port oriented?
Well, I did write one for my own iOS games, and I mean it wasn't board game specific really, but it was kind of just like it was a native iOS little tiny framework for just mostly for like 2D uh, stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I guess
Yeah,
it's the
I
answer.
mean, maybe it would be really hard to like structure. You have to imagine that there'd be some common things between a lot of board games. Like if you could like sync, so, like, at least like like turns and like
There
it
actually,
is hard to think of things that are like shared between all board games,
well,
but
so there are
yeah.
frameworks like this. There are quite a few of them.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say, and there's even one that I know of for Unity. So I
Mhm.
mean, like, so the stuff that I'm doing is mostly like mobile, targeting either mobile or desktop,
Yeah,
and I think the vast majority of those now are being made in Unity. Um, and there, I can think of one asset store plugin, and I looked at it, evaluated it maybe like 2, 3 years ago, and I didn't think it was anything special. I was like, okay,
yeah,
yeah, I can do all this stuff. Like, it didn't have like AI or anything like
Mhm.
cool, you know.
Yeah,
It was really just like draw, here's like drawing a grid on the screen, which is exactly what my framework did, like back
yeah.
in the day. Like, okay, yeah, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, that's been all my experience with a lot of like Unity store assets. Like I sometimes I'll like look at there obviously are really good ones too. There's great ones that are out there, but a lot of them like for smaller things, it always feels like oh, I feel like I just would rather write this myself. And that but then that's I'm spending a lot of time writing all this nonsense myself too. So
Yep,
yeah,
it's definitely a trade-off. I mean,
yeah,
because you'd spend the same amount of time probably learning the tool, if it's in
exactly.
the
Yeah,
asset store, and then like it's only as good as it's as good as it is. So you could spend all this time in learning and then find out it's like kind of terrible underneath, or it doesn't do the thing that you want it to do, and then it's more work to make it do the thing that you want it to do because you didn't write it from scratch.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the struggle. Looks like Zelha joined as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm
Hi,
Carlos.
Oh, hey, Carlos.
hi, Carl.
Yeah, Martin, I just sent you an email. I was bothering Zach out in San Diego trying to figure out. I don't follow you guys every meeting, so I didn't realize that one is on Twitch and then the other one is alt space alternating.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And
Um,
the Eventbrite doesn't specify anything, any directions, and it said you'll get an email from the organizer. And I looked in my inbox, spam, blah blah blah, nada. So I thought, what the hell's going on? So anyway, I got a little weird there. Apologies.
Yeah, that's good feedback though, that we should be clear about like where where do you join this thing?
Yeah, especially when you're doing programming and you're supposed to be very smart people.
I don't know.
I don't think we've ever made that kind of claim.
No, I know that. I'm just saying, I'm one of the dumb ones. I'm definitely not the sharpest tool in the tool shed. You guys are way above in brain power.
So did you go play in Rec Room on Monday, Carlos?
We went to Poker Stars. We were in there this time.
So do you play for real money?
No. It's you join the game's free. It's really a beautiful game. They've really well done, and it's a private room that we create. And you just there's when you come into the lobby, there's a wheel that you spin, and you get free poker chips. And depending on what number you fall on is how many poker chips. But you can get poker chips every 8 hours. So I'm up to 2 million. And I can bet to my heart's content, and I don't feel bad losing the money. So, and I'm not a poker player per se, but I'm getting better at it now. I don't play every hand and just toss money in for the hell of it.
Is it just Texas Hold'em?
Yes, the 5 cards, they go uncovering them, and then
Do you actually have to fold? Do you literally just push your cards into the center or something?
You just toss them in the center, and it takes them. I can't recommend more this game. It's really, I don't know how they're making money. Actually, you can buy chips if you're really desperate. But the game is so beautiful, and you can carry on a conversation. You can have up to 8 people in the table.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've heard of that, but I haven't ever actually downloaded or tried it.
Yeah, anytime, just hit me up and I'll go in there and show you around.
Are there still a lot of children? Because the biggest problem with Rec Room is it's kind of full of there's a lot of children, which it's sometimes is fine, but yeah.
Well, that gets to my point, which is last Monday I played with the guys from Austin and with Zach playing a Bucketar. You guys, am I the only one that finds it really ironic that we're going and playing in this cool get together, have fun visual space, which, like several of the spaces, like Alt Space and Rec Room, were set up to have public parts to it. Yeah. And everybody I talked to says, "Yeah, I went right in and made a private room, so I don't have to deal with the kids."
Yeah, we only do. Avoid the randos. I mean, those kids are really loud and obnoxious. I don't have kids, so you'll have to forgive me for those of you that are parents. But I missed that train a long time ago. No grandchildren.
Weren't we playing Bucketar with an 11-year-old or something? And
there was. Well, it was one of the kids of somebody that was in there that got in there.
And she was a good time. I mean, kids are good.
Yeah. No, she was very respectful.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to blanket say that all kids are obnoxious on those spaces, but
no, I know.
Yeah, when it can be bad. Yeah,
it's I'm the kind of guy, get off my lawn, kids. No, I appreciate young people that are smart and respectful, but the ones that are just crying for attention and they think the more obnoxious they are, the more attention they get. And I guess it works in their world because they've been compensated by their peers or the people around them. But for me, I've met a lot of smart kids that are enjoyable. And
so is it your take that in Rec Room and Alt Space that it's the youth that's the problem? It's their age, or
no? I
think it's an attitude thing.
Yeah, it's mostly how obnoxious they are, and I do think that that it's correlated a little bit with age, right? I mean, I think that a lot of I don't know. I personally feel weird talking to a bunch of 10-year-olds or something like that, while I'm playing the game. So,
I think too it has to do with context. So,
if
a kid is playing with their with their peers, right? Like they're more likely to be disinterested in playing with an adult, right? Like I think it's so there. I think there's a little bit of like intentional, like being obnoxious to like make it so that it's just them playing
Oh,
together,
interesting.
right?
I never
Like
thought about that.
and I think it really depends on the kid, of course, but I think also like the depending on the age and where they're at, like sort of emotionally and sort of developmentally, kids are at different places, like
Yeah.
socializing, right? Like
Yeah.
figuring out like how to be around other people and how to talk to other people, and so I think a lot of times in online spaces kids are experimenting, right? They're figuring
Yeah.
that stuff out like on the
Yeah.
fly. And so what you're seeing is not necessarily how they would actually, act in reality. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
I hope
like
not.
yeah, exactly. Like it's an amped up version of that, like that where they're, because it's kind of a space where you can, really figure out like what is it like to be this way around other
Yeah.
people? Like, does that get me more attention, or is it just, um, you know, obnoxious or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing in online spaces is interesting because it's not exactly correlated to like how people are in real life.
In real life, they take a lot of liberties in VR. They think they can push the envelope since they can't make eye contact with anybody in real, in VR. So it allows them to be, they can be very good or they can be really bad. And my experience with kids is Horizon from Facebook, Rec Room, and VR Chat, and Altspace to a certain degree. But I mean, VR Chat and Horizon are actually pretty crazy because Horizon or Facebook says no kids under 13. And yet what is happening is that the kids grab the headset from their parents and then they go in there. And I was in there yesterday and there was just a kid buzzing around like a fly or a mosquito. And he just kept getting in between the conversation that I was having with this guy. And it just gets on your nerves. We finally moved to another space and then we're able to talk there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is for like how to. I feel like you can't really stop them from playing the games, right? Nor maybe should you, but at the same time, like there should be a way to like. Yeah, I don't know how you verify your age in a way that is anonymous, but also it's a hard problem.
It's a lot of the platforms have built-in tools to mute them.
Yeah.
And to report them and this and that. I mean, which I remember I was in Altspace not too long ago where one of the moderators was just banning kids left and right. And if you get banned by an Altspace person, you'll never get back in there, even if you're using your parents' account kind of thing. So
Wow.
it's it's an issue and it's ongoing and nothing's perfect. It's, we're humans and humans are not perfect. So therefore.
Yeah, for sure. I think, all of the platforms are going to have to implement these tools, right? Like these moderation tools and like the ability to not just ban, but just to block and mute and all that stuff. I think that's going to all be ubiquitous. We're going to see that stuff everywhere eventually. That's my prediction.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think they already are implemented. They're already there. Since High Fidelity, which was one of my first platforms I went into, I've been using where you can just make the person disappear. You just click on them and they're gone and that's it.
High Fidelity still around?
No, they shut doors over a year ago.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But now Philip Rosedale has that audio platform, which is High Fidelity too. It's sort of like Clubhouse, but not as popular. Are you guys doing Clubhouse?
I have an account, but I am not really I'm not a podcast listener, and so it's kind of like it's a thing that I just don't need,
It's weird because they're live people. That's the difference between podcast and that you can actually get on the stage and give your opinion if you get in line and raise your hand. And by the way, if any of you guys go in there, remember to leave quietly, because if you just shut the app down, you're still in the room. So there's a little icon. There's an icon on the lower left that says "Leave quietly," and that will get you out of the room completely. So I've heard that I haven't run into, but Mark Zuckerberg is on there, and there's a lot of famous people that have been in there. And I've had some really very interesting conversations with them. Ken Bai, who I'm a big fan of his work and what he's doing, he's in there often talking about the metaverse and stuff like that, and the privacy rules that are being implemented by, that are out of control by Facebook. And anyway.
Yeah, I saw there've been a couple times when I saw talks that I was like, oh man, I would like to see that. And we have a local guy, Charlie McCarran, who is a game designer and also like a what's it called when you write music for movies? Whatever that is, composer. He's a composer, I guess.
He scores movies,
Right,
music,
yeah.
yeah.
And he's doing like kind of regular rooms where he like interviews people and stuff, and getting some traction, it sounds like. And so I mean, people are definitely using it, and I think it's an interesting new sort of platform.
Very interesting. And the thing, if you have a dog and he needs to go poop, that's the best time to listen to it. Just put your earplugs in there and you follow the people that you're interested in, and then turn on notifications, and it'll pop up and show you on your home screen that they're open, and then you just join and go in there and listen, or participate as you wish.
That's sort of how I do podcasts as a whole, is, put on my earphones and go for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marty, do you need us to help you get ready? Are we distracting you?
No, we're good. I am actually, so Dev's talk, which is the first one, is like he's doing it as a video, like he pre-recorded it, and I'm downloading it now. So I mean, I still have to do the intro slides, but we got like 6 minutes before that. But hopefully,
Famous last words.
Oh, it looks like it is downloaded. Okay, it was going pretty slow, and I was a little afraid that it wasn't going to be downloaded in time, but it looks like it's good.
So that content is going to be seen on Twitch. Is that the way this works?
Yeah, and actually, like, people watching on Twitch can hear us now.
Right.
So yeah, that's right. You're online.
I'm broadcasting. I'm live.
Yep. And then and then afterwards we use the Twitch as like the backup to YouTube, basically. So it is a live event, but now just because it's online, we can just make it kind of available for later too. And actually, I just pointed someone, I can't remember who it was. Oh, I do remember now. I pointed someone to one of the VR meetups and was like, "Oh yeah, we just talked about that." He was asking about how to record 3D, take 3D models from your phone, from your iPhone. And I was like, "Oh yeah, we just had a talk about that in January," and was able to point him to the YouTube, and he watched it and sent me an email an hour later. I was like, "That was perfect. That was exactly what I wanted to know." So it was great. Yeah, usually I'm trying to ask people about, like, what have you played? What are you playing right now? So that's my typical question. Does anyone have anything they're excited about right now?
I'm doing XR Social Club in 19 minutes. That's Christina Heller from Meta Stage in Los Angeles. She does volumetric capture and is doing work for that new app, AR app called Jadu. You guys familiar?
Jadu? No,
I'm just making sure that I got it right here. It's spelled the way it's pronounced, Jadu, and it's free. It's iOS, and you download it, and then you can have these top pop artists, dance in your living room with AR, and you can dance next to it and record it and then post it on social media. And it's
Musical holograms for your what does it say? Musical holograms for augmented reality.
so one of the guys that actually runs that company, he was in Clubhouse, and that's how I found out about it. And then last week, Christina mentioned that they were doing work with that ex, what's his name? He's a young artist, I can't remember his name. What is it, honey? Little Nas X.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they did one volumetric capture for him. And so now he's apparently super popular. He's got millions of followers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. Yeah, that's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Dance with your favorite musicians or whatever.
And he was talking about how they optimize these super large files and make it look so. And I downloaded and tried it out. I mean, the quality of the picture of the face is really quite good.
Yeah, I think like video, like like photorealistic 3D models are like taking video and turning it into photorealistic 3D models is it's a hard problem. And
To
it's
get
one
it,
that I think a lot of people are working on right now.
yeah. Well, to compress it and to get it in.
Well, and especially because you're taking multiple videos to get there.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've got to film it from all the angles and then stitch them together. Yeah.
She in her studio, she's got 140 cameras that surround the talent, and they shoot it simultaneously. I mean, you can go to her website metastage.com and see the setup that she has there. It's pretty impressive. Click, click, click. I hear that keyboard.
Yeah, I got a little clacky keyboard over here.
Logitech.
I bought a new keyboard, actually. I've been talking about this everywhere. Like in all my online presences, I've been talking about my keyboard. I bought a Moonlander. Has anyone heard of that?
No.
It's a mechanical keyboard, so you can specify which types of keycaps it has or whatever, and how clacky it is versus whatever. And I'm quiet. Well, I can't help it. Sorry. And yeah, so it's cool. It's a cool keyboard because actually here I wonder if I can.
Oh yeah, so it's separated like a two.
It's a split keyboard.
That's
Nice.
weird. I never could get used to those.
I really like mine. I've got one that's I think it's Kinesis Gaming. That's a split keyboard, and it's just really nice being able to actually put things in a way that your arms will lie naturally.
Yeah, I think it makes so much more sense for you to type with your hands at arm's width apart or shoulder width apart.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a Kinesis as well, and that's what I was typing on until I got the Moonlander. The Moonlander is also the word for it is, I think, ortholinear, if I'm remembering right. So it's like the keys are, where is my camera? So like the keys are above each other instead of offset like a normal keyboard.
Yeah.
And so it takes a little bit of work to get used to it, but it's nice once you get sort of the feel of it down.
Interesting. What's the benefit of the column or like the grid?
Supposedly, you have to move your fingers less distance to get to all the keys, but I'm not sure that's true. I mean, because you're probably moving the keys that are your fingers that are not directly above and below farther, right? So does it work out? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I've always maybe I'm wrong. But I always assumed that the offsetness of a normal keyboard was there for kind of some sort of reason, right? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
What kind of money does that set you back?
Yeah, so I think it's like $350 for the Moonlander. It's not cheap. Yeah, the Kinesis is much more affordable, and you can get them for about $100.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah. I mean, versus the gaming keyboard that I got with my PC that was, I think, literally a $10 add-on.
Yeah.
But
MSI.
Yeah, before the Kinesis, I had like wrist things, like kind of like because of the way your wrists are kind of bent all the time. Like I was getting some bad wrist pain, and I feel like that has gotten rid of that kind of wrist pain at least. changes to other types of wrist pain, but
Yeah, I definitely had quite a bit of carpal when I first started working, which was like 20 years ago now. And my solution at the time, because these keyboards did not exist, was to actually just plug in two keyboards to my computer, and then I had a keyboard on the left and a keyboard on the right, and I could position them wherever I wanted them, and that really
Well,
helped.
that's cool.
Yeah. The one drawback of that approach is that you can't shift across keyboards. So I got really
Oh,
good at shifting with the finger that was the pinky that was the hand that I was typing at the time. But
hey,
I guess
Marty,
we should probably get started.
it's 6:48.
It is. All right, I'm going to leave the Minneapolis room. You guys are welcome, of course, to stay in here and back channel or whatever you call it.
But
Uh,
it gets a little echoey if you're trying to actually sort of listen to the other one too, though.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you have to take that into account. Okay, how do I even leave this room? Like,
Where do you guys post links on this Discord channel? On what channel?
Good question, Carlos.
Oh.
Which
I
Which
went
that's a
to
great question.
I
I
went to
think-
Lounge Text.
Right, so yeah, so lounge text is a fine place, and sort of like meant for that purpose. But like because we're kind of an official event or whatever, you could go under IGATC and there's like an events chat as well, which is another place we've used.
Okay.
That said, the Twin Cities Game Dev Discord does not exactly have a lot of activity, and probably any channel is fine.
But still, it's nice when we're talking before and during
All
and
in the
after.
same place.
So I'll be looking at the same place.
I
So
agree. I agree. I think events
So,
chat
Martin?
is the one that I prefer.
say that again. Events chat.
Events chat. Yeah,
Advanced
so-
chat.
all right.
I just posted a link that Quest 2 is getting AirLink for wireless PC VR 120
Yeah.
hertz and keyboard, since we're talking keyboards.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Mhm.
I actually just downloaded an app that lets me stream my Quest to my PC, and it worked surprisingly well. And I just tested it out this afternoon. Called. I mean, it's not obviously the same thing, but it's called Air Receiver, and it's on sale today for $2. I was like, okay, I'll try that.
Where is that in the Oculus store?
No, so it's a Windows desktop application. So it's in the Windows Store. But
Right.
then it lets you stream your Oculus to your desktop. So
oh, like
you'll be
is this that
aware-
up like Chromecast type thing?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh.
exactly what it does. Is it pretends to be it's a either a casting spot or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's sort of backwards from what Carlos is talking about, though, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, Carlos, when you're with the idea about using that wireless thing,
Mhm.
it still requires you to have a Mongo graphics card, right? Or
Mongo is what, a powerful.
nice, big, expensive one that are impossible to buy now.
Well, it wouldn't be the 3000 series. I'm going to try. I haven't gotten the update, but I definitely will give it a try because I hate trying to peck at those in world keyboards they have. I even tried.
You're talking about the keyboard. I'm talking about the wireless tether or whatever they called it. This is what also got it. Yeah.
Airlink. Yeah.
AirLink. Yeah. Which I'm assuming just replaces the concept of hooking it up the way your Oculus whatever was hooked up.
The Oculus Link.
Yeah.
Well, so is
Well, I'm
that-
gonna mute and head over to the Twitch.
Yeah, I'm gonna disconnect the chat here. Yeah, I'm reading this article too, and it sounds like it's kind of a couple things. Anyway, that's for later. We could talk about that later. No one's even talking to me anymore because I'm in all by myself. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me better now, and welcome. This is the IGDA Twin Cities chapter meeting for whatever month this is we're in now. Who knows? Uh, we aim to be like an inclusive, safe community for game developers, aspiring game developers. Our meetings are always open and free to join. Um, we used to meet in real life, and now we meet online. Um, you can always join, as has been discussed previously, but maybe some people are just joining in. You can always join us in Discord during these events and chat. We're in the events chat channel, but actually also in the lounge text channel, but maybe more in the events chat. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to chat in there. You can also obviously chat on Twitch, although that is ephemeral. I guess the Discord is ephemeral too. Your chats are just going to disappear into the void. Um, we are on Slack. I guess I'll talk about that later. So let's move on. This is who kind of runs this shindig, our board of DER. A bunch of these people basically help organize this event and other events that we do as well. And what are those events? Why, I'm glad you asked. Oh yeah, my face covers up May. That's okay. Next month it will be very similar to April in that the second Wednesday of the month is our standard game dev meeting. The third Wednesday is our playtest event, and the fourth Wednesday typically is the VR and HCI meeting. So next month we have the Stout Senior Projects for our main event, which if you've ever seen them before is always a good time. It's like packed full because we basically get all the senior projects. So I think this year, if I remember right, there were either 6 or 7 or something like that. So we're gonna have a full night for sure of those, and they're always interesting because like they're just a bunch of different projects like that got created in 6 months or something. Um, and then the playtest is always different, and actually I don't know if there are any specifics for what they're going to playtest next week. If Lane or any of you know, you can feel free to post in chat. That'd be great. Um, and then the MNVR and HCI this month is Matt Summers talking about his kind of experience creating social spaces in VR, specifically using Normcore, which I believe is the backend that was developed for Half Half, which is a online multiplayer thing. And Normcore is free to use. You can like download it, and then once you have more than a certain number of users or a certain number of active connections per something, then they want you to pay, of course. But it's actually a really nice framework. I've played with it as well. So that is kind of our upcoming events. Here's kind of what the VR and HCI meetings have looked like. Although actually now I should have taken a screenshot from the last one because they do look pretty different now. Since Altspace has like updated their entire graphical situation, so it looks pretty different now. And last month, especially, we were in a completely new environment, which looks even more different. But so yeah, we're holding these in Altspace. Although there's some talk about maybe this next meeting being in a custom thing that Matt makes. So we'll see. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. The next big jam. Wait, what's happening? I'm not following along with chat very well. So the Twin Cities playtest. A little bit more about that. Again, it's every third Wednesday, and you can participate in 3 ways. There, you can be an attendee and just watch on Twitch. You can be a playtester and actually play the games, and so you can do that sort of in advance. You can say like, "Oh, I want to play test some games," or you can just do it in the moment. I think, but typically you'll need to download Parsec, which is how you play the games over the internet. Or as a developer, you can send a Windows build, and that's it. They'll handle who's going to play it and playing it on the stream, and you can watch people make horrible mistakes in your game or see the horrible mistakes that you made developing your game. I got to playtest last month actually, and it was incredibly valuable. So they played Thrive. Yes, thanks Scott for prompting me to plug my own game, and it was really valuable, the feedback that I got. So I actually made like a huge list of all the the feedback from the event, and then I think I actually I used it kind of as a checklist, and I made a bunch of changes. So if we ever play test it again, hopefully half that stuff won't happen again. But I mean, it was good feedback. Okay, so how can you connect with us as a group? You can go to our website, igdatc.org, and in particular, there is a Connect with Us button that's over here behind my face, so you can't actually see where it is. It's in the main menu. And the Connect with Us has a whole list of ways that you can get in contact with us, either email or on the Slack is kind of the most common way to chat with us. Of course, there's the Discord as well. All those things are listed on the website, and this is more about what we do every month and who we are and that kind of stuff. Oh my gosh! For the playtest, I'm reading the chat now. Oh, some VR games! Yeah, exciting. Yeah, so Lane is involved in one of our main speakers tonight is involved in the playtest event, so he can speak very well to that. And maybe when he's like doing Q&A after his talk, you can harangue him with a bunch of playtest questions as well. So we're always looking for presenters. You are welcome to email events@igdatc.org or me, Martin at abstractpuzzle.com, or you can tweet at us. Basically, like any way, get in contact with us. You could always message us on Discord or chat or whatever, and we would love to have you speak. I think we are only booked up through next month, so we do have availability even in June for speakers. So yeah, love to have people speak even if they've never given a talk before. We're a very friendly crowd for first-time speakers. And we are part of a parent organization. So IGDA is the International Game Developers Association. It's a real thing that is truly international, and you can join there's like a membership fee, and you can become a card-carrying member. I don't know if they have physical cards anymore, but you can join, and there are a bunch of benefits that you can read about at igda.org. And oh man, for yet another month, I have forgotten to remove this link to the new chapter feedback survey, which is now quite old. I think it's at least 4 months old. So probably it's not good anymore. I don't know. And I guess this slide is still here as well, just that we're still figuring out how to use Twitch. I don't know, it's been over a year now. I guess this is a year and a month that we've been online only. And so we would love to hear feedback about the format and whether this is working or not. But I don't think we've heard anything so far. So that's what this is saying. All right. Every month when you sign up, you can sign up to plug, and I think you get the question about whether you have anything to plug, even if you didn't choose the plugin ticket, or at least I noticed that this month. Of course, you're welcome to plug your things in the chat as well. So if you have anything that you'd like me to at least pull up or show, just post them in the chat, and I'm happy to talk about them. So let's get right into it. We only have a couple this time around. First of all, apologies to Brock for last month missing his plug. I had pulled all the list of people that wanted to plug things off the Eventbrite. I think at 3 or in the afternoon or something, but Brock registered after that, and I apologize for not seeing his. So anyway, he has released this album. Speak Tier, I think is probably how you pronounce that, and it's new and on Bandcamp, and you can buy it, and it's awesome. It's actually pretty good. I was listening to it earlier today, and I listened to it last month too. And then we also had one more plug, which was for Magical Unicorn Quest, the, the Unicorn Trader Edition, I guess. And you can go to that Kickstarter link, which is fairly long, but I'll leave it up so you can type it in. Go ahead, I'm waiting. Uh, and the Kickstarter is not actually live until apparently tomorrow, but this is a preview link, so you can give feedback on it before it goes live. Oh, I could actually just copy this into chat. Let's do that. How's that for a thing I could do? So there's the Kickstarter link. Oh, and I didn't even put the guy's name on here, and now I feel bad because I don't have it up, so I am not 100% sure. Oh, Andy Kuplik maybe, is his game, Magical Unicorn Quest, and his publishing company that I am forgetting the name of. But you'll see it if you follow the link. So it's kind of exciting. It's not a new game, but it's a new Kickstarter for maybe the expansions are new. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, check that out. And then it looks like we also have a plug for an EP that Dev, another speaker tonight, released last month. This is uploaded, but he has not started promoting it yet. That's exciting. There's a video, like a music video. I feel like I don't know if we should watch a music video. We could watch this whole music video. That's the thing. But he posted the link. Maybe we won't watch the video because I think I've had mixed results with streaming music on here before. It's been kind of annoying. It's like stuttery or whatever. We are an exclusive audience. Don't watch the whole video. Okay, well, good. I won't do it. And I would have to pick the yeah. Okay, I'm not even gonna show anything. But thanks, Dev, for that. And I am definitely gonna watch the video later. Do I have any more plugs? No, that's it. So, without further ado, how am I gonna do this? I've got to pick the window for Dev's talk, which we're going to do in a slightly different way tonight. Dev gave me a video, and we're going to play the video and then watch. Yeah, it's not like a link to the video. It's not a public video that I know of. So we're going to watch the video. So I hope the audio is not as choppy as when I've been playing videos through here before. So actually that did not occur to me as a potential problem or bottleneck here. But let me
What's up, everybody? This is Dev. I am the president of Code and Noises at DevNAri, a two-person development studio here in the Twin Cities.
Okay, cool. Pause that. Let me just select the video so you can see it. Give me a second. Bear with me. Nope, that's the wrong. Oh no, that is the right one. Great. All right. I'm just gonna play the video, and then Dev's in chat, so you can ask him questions as he's talking, and he can answer as he's talking without actually stopping his talk. Okay. All right.
What's up, everybody? This is Dev. I am the president of Code and Noises at DevNAri, a two-person development studio here in the Twin Cities. Our game, Newt One, has been out for a little bit over a year and is on all major platforms. We are about to sunset that project, but before we do, we're doing a series of DLCs. That is about what this talk/video will be about. I recorded some of this about a week ago because I was a week off and I thought that that last week was going to be IGDA-TC, so I was kind of crunching for that. So I recorded some stuff then and just kind of put it all together with some video I shot while walking my dog today to kind of walk you through this. I hope you have some fun, and I will be around. I'm in the chat, so feel free to go ahead and put questions in there, and I think Marty's going to turn the mic over to me after the video plays so that I can answer questions in real time if needed. Cheers. So I've got exactly 1 week until this IGDA ATC meeting here in the Twin Cities, where I'll be talking about this DLC that we're doing for Newt One, the game on which Ari and I have been working for a little over 5 years. I just got a new level from him. I've got really 2 major feature upgrades to do specifically for this DLC, and then it'll be ready to turn over for a first test of trying to get it ready for all the consoles with our publisher. So I figured I would try to make this video and document the last steps of it, because we're going to sunset it after this and move on to our next project. We'll see. If this is boring, no one's ever going to see it. We're walking this guy right now. Okay, so I'm really here to talk about the DLC for Newt One, and I'm going to tell the history of how it happened. I think that's kind of important, because when we started Newt One, when Ari and I started Newt One, we didn't own DevNAri yet or anything. We were just a couple friends. Ari actually posted something about like, hey, I'd like to make a game, and really for a specific platform. I can't remember what the software was that we were looking at, but it wasn't Unity. And it was like, yeah, okay, let's give that a shot. And, you know, I just kind of messaged him. I was like, yeah, we could do that. That'd be fun. And then next thing you know, it's 5 years later, and we own a little LLC, and we're releasing it, the game, on all major platforms due to the help of our amazing publisher. So, in between there, I moved back from LA in 2016, and we started showing the game publicly here. So the first places we took it were like TEDx and Minibar and VGMCon, GlitchCon, and eventually 2DCon. And by the time we got to 2DCon, that was fun to say. By the time we took it to 2DCon in 2017, the game had pretty much taken shape. And also, I think a lot of the people in the area, in the Twin Cities, that would have known about it already did. So we wanted to do something different for the booth. And, you know, it's a really chill, non-violent game. So I ended up coming up with the idea of like, let's just do races. You know, it's kind of non-violent, it's really simple. Turned into kind of a leaderboard. And so I'm going to put some video up here where you can see the people playing, and there's a little whiteboard that has Post-its on it that have the best times of the day. So we chose a different level each day, invited people to come to our little booth, play it, and then at a specific time each day, it was around 5 o'clock, something like that, we would go through and say, okay, these people won, and so as a result, you get a giant poster. And the main winners for each day got a huge poster. I think it was like 2 feet by 3 feet, like a 24 by 36 poster, 11 by 17s, and package of stickers for the next few people, and then package of stickers and flyers and stuff like that all the way around. But what that unlocked was this concept of like, hey, looks like speedrunners actually like our game. I never would have thought of that, because the concept for the game was really Journey meets Mario 64, at least as far as the mechanics go. That's for what I was shooting, and never really expected that, but it worked out really well. And then when we get to the point where we are right now, where it's like, hey, you know, it's time to sunset this game. What are we gonna actually do to like say goodbye to our little baby? A big part of it was, you know, let's embrace the speedrunner thing. And after a couple months after release, a couple months after our initial release on all platforms, we did a DLC that cleaned up some of the controls, some of the UI, and added a feature where if the system date is either Halloween or November 1st, Newt will be wearing a Day of the Dead skin, a full new like model and texture and everything. That got us the confidence to be able to work with our publisher and release DLCs. So the idea for doing a DLC for a speedrunner edition started to hatch. So the idea for a speedrun edition evolved really into a season of releases. So to say goodbye to our lovely little game that we love so much, on which we've worked for over 5 years. You know, we brought it to like PAX and Indiecade, and just all over the place, and spent so much time with it. One of the things that we want to do was say goodbye to it in a very loving way and kind of sunset the project. So rather than one DLC, we're going to do 3 of them. Each one's going to have 5 new speedrun levels, and levels specifically designed for speedrun, and they're each going to have new music. And they're also going to have this new feature of showing the music on the screen, which we'll take a look at right now. Okay, finally, let's take a look at one of Ari's new levels for the speedrun edition. Hope you dig it, and I'll be around for questions afterwards if you want. Cheers. Oh. Basic structure of everything that I need for a speed run done. It's a weird feeling to be that close to being done with the last update on something on which we've worked for 5 years. A little bit longer than that, and has really kind of suffered a lot from the pandemic. It really took a toll on the amount of work that I was able to do on this project. So anyway, it's a weird feeling, you know. Actually launching a game is one thing. Supporting it, we did a DLC a little bit ago, but then doing another one and realizing that we're, you know, putting this one to bed is really just a very unique feeling, and I think it's one of the reasons that I like doing creative technical stuff. It feels completely different than any other kind of creative stuff or just purely technical things. But thank you for checking this out. Hopefully that wasn't a terribly boring presentation. I'm sure I got more to say. And imagine that I do have more to say. This is Commander Wisdom. I think she was jealous that she was jealous that my dog Professor Trouble got into the video and she did it. But yeah, so there's a bunch of new music features actually that are going to be part of the DLC. So this next segment was actually recorded for an event, like a streaming event called Save and Sound, that'll be going on from May 27th through the 31st. Covers those features. I had already recorded it for that. So I'm adding it here, and then afterwards I will be available for questions. Cheers. I'm going to hit the M key here. I added this specifically for this talk. It's a new way to represent the volumes of the stems that are happening in the game. And I'm going to keep it in actually for the DLC. I think it's pretty fun. So you can see here this volume bar for the drone is really high. We're very early in the level, 7%. So it's still the majority of the music tones is the drone. At 7%, a little bit of the percussion is starting to come in. The other groups of the stems are the melody, the harmony, drums, bass, and the accompaniment. So those are different for each world, and you can see there's this big spike that's happening on the far right, and that's the touch sound. So when I touch something, it actually is basically fading in and out. It sets a target volume for something and lurks towards it and away from it. And what that actually does is plays an arpeggio or an arpeggiated version of the current chord or one of its related chords on top of whatever is happening. So the drone itself is really monophonic and is kind of just following usually just the roots of like the harmonic rhythm, and then that gets built on top of, as you can see here first, with the percussion and the accompaniment, And then as we progress, we'll start seeing the other bars start pulling up. So we've got this sound that is the drone that's following the basic root notes, and then the touch is arpeggiating on top of that, and so is the wing sound. So the float sound tends to be usually very high and bright, and the touch sound is usually a little bit more high mids for each level. So we're starting to see the basses coming in at about 35%. We've got a good amount of percussion, a good amount of the accompaniment. So it's still feeling kind of sparse. The main like musical motifs, like the melody and the harmony, are still pretty low. The melody's coming up on probably about 40% now that we're about 40% through. And as I mentioned before, the drums tend to be kind of the driving rhythmic centerpiece. So you'll see those still at 0 come in much later. They're the last to come in. I think they start coming in like around 80% or something like that. So there's a pretty simple equation for each one of the groups of stems that determines what its volume level will be. We're at 60%, and we're just starting to see a sliver for the drums, what its volume level will be at any point in time based on the progression through the level. So this is a new way to visualize this. I literally put this in today kind of for this talk, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to keep it in for the DLCs. We are working on a series of DLCs right now that we're calling Speedrun Edition. So we're releasing 5 levels specifically for speedrunners. The music system for those is a little bit different. We've seen speedrunners beat some of these levels in like 13 seconds. So we're not focusing as much on the adaptive music for those levels, but there is a bit of a secret that I'll show you in a moment that is music based for the new coming DLCs. We can see now we're at 90%, and we're getting pretty strong with a lot of this music. There's full melody, full bass, close to full harmony. The percussion is pumping. We'll probably finish this at about 99% and get out of this level. So you can see how different the volumes are for all of these by the time we get to the end of the level as opposed to the beginning. And again, it's really just fading the drone out, which I believe is pretty much a parabolic curve, as these fade in, and they each have their own really simple equation that determines their volume at any given level of completion for the level. So the next thing that is going to be added is right here. It's called Mixer Mode. It's going to be brand new in the new DLCs. And what it does is, we can see here, it's a very similar kind of interface. It looks kind of jumbled up. But what I'm doing right now is I'm taking the melody, and the left stick allows me to change its volume, and the right stick allows me to change its pan. So we can actually go ahead and remix. This is the drone. I'm going to take the drone, put all the way on the left, turn it way down. This is not a final interface by any standard, so we'll pump the bass all the way up, keep it in the middle. Let's have some really strong bass and drums kind of in the middle. And we can remix our music, and it works with the different music for each of the different realms in the game. This is going to be in the DLC that's coming out that we're calling Speedrun Edition, and this is Speedrun Edition Volume 1. There's going to be 3 DLCs coming out in the next couple months. We're going to release 5 levels in each one, and I will continue to iterate on this just kind of for fun. After that, we're going to be moving into support mode for Newt One, and we're already starting to discuss what our next project is going to look like, but we're going to move into the prototyping stage for the next, probably for about the rest of the year before we start, like maybe around holiday time we'll probably start like development proper. But this is Newt One. We're very happy and proud of our little game, and would love it if you would check it out. It's a little over a year old at this point, so it's kind of going through the sales cycle, so it's usually on, the price of a Frappuccino or something like that. You could scoop it up. My name is Dev. I am the president of Code and Noises at DevNAri. I'm very easy to find online. I'll put my contact information on the screen. And this is Newt One. It's available on all of the current platforms, PS4 and 5, the Xbox Ones, the Switch, Steam, all that stuff. So if you got any questions, let me know. I would love to hear about what everyone is working, and very happy to be able to describe and show the music system in such detail today. So thank you for listening. Cheers.
That's amazing. Awesome talk there, Dev. Are you going to join us in Discord, Dev? Or are you just going to hang out in the chat? Is, I guess, the real question. My next question. My only question. Does anyone have any questions for Dev? Is another question. Not for Dev, but for everyone else. Let's see. Do I want to just go back to the... Nope, that's not it. Here we go. No, that's not it either. Oh my gosh. How's this one? All right, there we go. Yeah, Scott really enjoyed the walking and talking. I also enjoyed the walking and talking. I mean, I think just having both the like subject and like background be two different videos was just brilliant. So I don't know. Yeah, congrats to Dev for releasing. If you're online, you can just like message me, and then you can be on the stream. I don't see you online, but you could join the Minneapolis room. That's another thing you could do. Lane posts a link to it. When is, or do what Marty says. I'm curious when these DLC are going to drop. Like, do we have dates, or is this just in general? Is it just a general feature? And maybe you even said that, and I was spaced out. You didn't say a date. Probably intentionally, because if you had a date, you would have said it. Yeah, I'm sure. So working on dates with publisher. All right. Well, I don't know if anyone has any questions, and I don't know if I'm going to connect with Dev on Discord either. So I could actually just call you. I'm trying it. He'll either answer or he won't. One or the other.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do hear you.
Whoa. It's like I exist on the internet.
Here you are. I mean, we just saw a bunch of you, like a lot of you. More of you than would fit normally in that amount of time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, sorry, I was in the wrong Discord channel. I thought it was the event stage or something like that. But yeah, I think most of the questions were answered. Thank you. Thanks for listening. We're working with the publisher right now to figure out what a release window looks like. But we're going to do 3 of them, and we're going to try to do them about 3 weeks apart from each other. So pretty much like every week, so every week, every month. The idea was to have it be, and because we don't have the dates yet, I can't really say this, but we were going to call it Speedrun Spring, except maybe pronounce it correctly, Speedrun Spring. Maybe we should call it something easier to pronounce now that I'm saying it out loud. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, we were the spring of the speedrun or something like that.
Nice.
Was there some experiences about DLCs that you would recommend? I'm not sure I understand exactly the question there, but we wouldn't have even... What's that?
Do you have any advice?
Oh, advice in general? Doing the little one that was really just a bug patch and a fix of some controls was huge in building our confidence that we could that's my dog knocking some stuff over in the background. Sorry about that. I think he wants to go outside really bad. But doing that was really helpful and important. One of the main things about Unity, my dog is he's now standing on the mic cord. Okay. Professor Trouble is living up to his name. He thinks he's a rock star now that he's been broadcast on the internet in the beginning of the video today when we were
That's
going for a
right.
walk.
Was he watching?
Yes, he was. He was sitting next to me nicely on the couch while the video was playing. Now he's all up in my face. One of the things that I think was really important was don't use your resources folder if you're using Unity and you're going to make a DLC, because it has to, even if you only put like 2 megs in your resources folder, or if you access anything directly like a resources.load, and I don't think I've been doing that for a long time, but I did that for a while. And I think I left one thing in there like that or something. And even if it's like just a couple K or a couple megs, well, I don't know if they all did, but Nintendo came back and said it's reloading the entire 2.5 gig game. And we have a small game at 2.5 gigs, but that's what happens if you submit like that. So we moved everything
To asset bundles?
to asset. We moved everything to asset bundles, and a lot of stuff is even just kind of like in the level. The vast majority of our stuff is actually in the level, especially now that I'm not loading for the speedrun edition. The music isn't dynamic for those new levels because they're so short. So the vast majority of things are just kind of in the level. I think I just forgot like 1 or 2 things, but that was an important thing. Just get really used to using asset bundles. Some of the other, good question. Is this an actual DLC separate thing that has to be brought down, like an actual DLC on Steam? It's a content update. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. It's just a free asset content update for a game. And some point in time we're going into, and again, I don't have exact dates because I have to find out from our publisher, but some point in time soon, the game is going to go 50% off. So it'll be like $4.99. We're trying to coordinate that so that it's on sale, and then the free DLC comes out like the last couple days that it's on sale, and then it comes out, and then we're going to run a sale every month, basically, that the DLCs are there. So the game's been out for a while. Honestly, I hadn't even touched the code. The video you saw of me doing that was the first time I'd even like looked at it in months. So it was like an archaeological dig. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Ari and I are actually part of why we are. One of the questions that Lane had was, "Are you and I planning on keeping making games?" Absolutely. We're actually weirdly we're making more money now than we did in the release window. Like shortly, like a year after things started kind of picking up, and so we'll probably package everything up and do like an Ultimate Edition or something eventually. But we're actually going to migrate to Unreal, which is something that Ari uses during the day, so he's more comfortable as a designer in there. As a developer, I'm like, I kind of like having the keys to everything. But then I look at our stuff and I'm like, Ari is really what makes it cool. I'm just there to give him the foundation to make it like behave and look awesome. So it makes sense for him to do that. He also is not a fan of Git. It's really weird that artists are not fans of Git. But we have been ideating, I think that's a word, for a few months, and we're actually really excited about what we're going to do next. I'm not really ready to talk about it, but we've started designing. We're going to be prototyping for the rest of the year, and early next year we're going to start like production proper as we like completely sunset Newt One. That's our plan, and we're actually looking at the hardware specs of the current generation, the new current generation of console hardware, and we're going to see like what can we do with it. Like, so that's kind of our goal now that we have an idea of what the pipeline is. We've got a good relationship with our publisher. Yeah, I know, not a fan. Imagine that, but Ari's like an actual artist. I'm like a fake artist. I can tell the computer to make things that could be mistaken for art, whereas Ari like actually like paints and draws and things like an artist. And Git just does not fully. He doesn't get it. It just doesn't quite compute for him. So I think we're gonna. Anyway, we're looking at a couple other things, but definitely we're absolutely like rebuilding our infrastructure. Actually, even like looking at new systems and even maybe looking at other ways of delivering so that it's not just like on a screen. Hint, but there's a bunch of opportunities, and I think we're going to try to not have a 5-year development period next time. That's going to be really nice.
I've heard a lot of really good things about Perforce, especially for Unreal.
Yeah.
I've never played with it, but like especially in terms of like how it does like asset handling and
Yes.
for artists specifically.
100%. When 11 years ago now, I forget how old I am. Please
don't remind me how old I am. But my first use Perforce. Yeah, by like a month. I think I'm like 3.5 weeks younger than you. But the first time I used Perforce was on the Unreal game in 2010, and it was pretty magnificent. But it got kind of hairy towards the end, just because it's lock, modify, unlock. So people would be like, it would like claim a level and just never unlock it, so work wouldn't get done. But on a little team of 2 people with us, we've got a couple people who want to be interns, so it might be like 3-5 people as opposed to 120. That shouldn't be a problem. I can go and I can knock on Ari's door and yell at him if I needed to unlock something, But Perforce is great, and I actually found this out. I think they're a Minnesota company. I don't know if they're Twin Cities, but I found that out when I was looking them, or they have like a headquarters here or something. I didn't either, and I found it out when I was looking into it because we were talking about it at a different place. So if someone wants to do some digging on that, I remember seeing that when I signed up for it, but I very much think that interface is going to be a lot better. No, Newt One is Unity actually. So it's actually going to be, I'm sorry, one of the questions was Newt One is Unreal, right? But no, Newt One is all Unity. So yeah, it's a big deal for us to be moving. Very nice to talk to you. So yeah, it's actually right like down the block from where you live.
I had
Marty,
no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't either until I started looking into it. I was like, what? It's here? So yeah, I'm actually really excited about that too. It's an opportunity to support local and actually like build our infrastructure around the product, which is something that we weren't thinking about when we started. We started out as just a couple dudes making a game. We weren't planning on starting a company and getting a publisher or anything. But now that we're kind of there, I think it's time to put on our, take off our Huggies and, put on our Snuggies and pretend that we're adults. Snuggies are still a thing, right? I don't know. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dev. That's awesome. Okay. So let's move on to our second presentation of the evening. And to do that, I have to go find... First, I'm going to hang up on Dev. Bye, Dev. Awesome. I need to go find my chat with Lane and the other presenter, who I should remember the name of, but I don't. Oh, I'm a terrible person. Swarm Brawl. Lane and Swarm Brawl. Did your mother give you that name? Okay, I don't know why I said that. Let me just start the call. Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. I feel terrible for not remembering that your name was Ryan.
Yeah, it's all good. We've met each other like once, so no hard feelings.
Awesome. I'm gonna. So actually, first we need to turn on the camera. I don't know who is presenting what. I think.
Yeah, I can share here.
Yeah, and then I need to change my streaming software to look at the camera, which is a whole nother thing. Give me a second. Bear with me. This is almost the window that we want. What happens if I pop it out? No, that's not what I meant to do. Cancel that. Sorry.
Dude, how do we keep having such like fantastic talks and presentations here? I just can't get over it. Like that thing from Dev was just insane.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the reason is that we have amazing people. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe that with all my heart, and that I keep getting impressed like every single month. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a labor of love, and when you love what you do, you always go the extra mile when you can. Yeah, it's great to showcase the talent we have in the area because, I don't know, I kind of have a bit of an inferiority complex being from Minnesota because all the other parts of the country always paint us as flyover territory with like, nothing huge to offer the rest of the world as far as entertainment goes. But yeah, I mean, the more I participate with you guys, the more I see that we do have a pretty large base of talent here. So yeah, I'm really excited and encourage everyone to keep trying to get in touch with what we got here.
Oh, we'll get our revenge, one IGDA talk at a time. Marty, are we up?
Yeah. I'm just trying to remove my little preview of myself in this corner. There's definitely a way to do it. I've done it before is the thing. Like I know that I've done it before. I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
Oh man, is it possible for me to look at Twitch at the same time?
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
It is painful
we'll try.
to do that. I mean, you can try. Yeah, I don't know why. And like,
Okay.
I can't. It's not right clicking on it. Like,
I mean, I don't see your. That little
it's
black.
like this little black
dude,
box
yeah.
in the corner. Like, okay. No,
It could just be a part of our style, dude. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah. That's fine. We don't have anything important in the bottom 1% of the screen, so it'll be cool.
But like, I've definitely gotten rid of it before. I don't know.
Dude,
I could just play with it.
if we keep having these like world-class talks against a backdrop of horrible technical inadequacy, I'm just gonna love it all the more. The little engine that could.
Ugh, so annoying. Okay, so what if I did this? What if I like, can I just like not?
Yeah.
There's no like, no, that's the opposite of what I want to do. I want to do just this.
No.
Oh my god, I don't know.
Don't worry, man. We're just chilling. We don't have anything to do tonight.
All right, yeah, we'll do it until I figure it out. We'll just keep doing this.
You sure?
No, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, I didn't invite anybody to come watch this or anything. Don't worry.
All right, I'm gonna hand it over to you guys. I apologize for this ugly black box in the corner.
I mean, if 1% of the screen is that vital for this presentation, then we've done something wrong. I think we can get around that.
All right, thanks so much.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I guess I'm going to kick this thing off and just say that, man, love to be here. And despite me saying horrible technical inadequacy, I got to say, Marty, you have been just like a crazy pillar of this community. I cannot believe how well this community has done at keeping the flame alive here when it really could have gotten snuffed out. So cheers to all of you folks. Ryan and I wanted to talk about game jams, and we'll get into exactly why that is. But first, some introductions. So here's me. That's him. You can reach me here. You can reach him there. And these are some things that we worked on. If you guys, Ryan, anything more that we should say?
Not especially. Yeah, I mean, game jams are a great way to start projects. You know, we have a lot of projects that we fall in love with and continue to work on, even past the jam. So it's a great way to build something for yourself. And yeah, please do contact us if you have any questions or any interest at all. We definitely love making new friends.
My personal favorite game that I worked on is the Black Void in the bottom right. That one was a treat. All right,
yeah, I remember, man. Good times.
And there is on here a secret game that is somehow connected to this week's Nice Games Club. You will not be able to figure out which one it is. I dare you to try. All right, moving on. So here's some things that you're going to see in this talk. Oh yeah, and by the way, I'm doing my best to learn like a little bit of like YouTube technology here. So I'm going to try to tease you guys with these clickbait headlines. Motivation. Why 2021 is the best year ever to do a game jam. I genuinely think that. Pre-jam, can you win a jam before they start without cheating? Start of a jam, the best jam ideas depend on this team characteristic. You won't believe which one it is. The jam, the pressure cooker with less pressure and more cook. End of jam, what to prioritize as the clock ticks down, and of course, the post jam. So you just went through a big slog. How do you get the most out of that? So, part one, motivation. So, our good friend David Mann had a comment here. He said that if he could pick one thing to do for personal or professional development, game jams are it. But why? Why do we do this to ourselves? I mean, I'm sure that like anybody who has been through a jam is familiar with the feeling on like Sunday night of you get done with the jam and you just turn into jello at the end of that, and you just sink into your floor, and you don't really like you may have had the wisdom to take Monday off afterwards, but you are absolutely suffering at the end of that day. So like, why do people do this, and why is this year basically the best time ever to be doing a jam? Well, let's get into like some basic reasons why people do these things. So basically, I've been like perusing a lot of Ludum Dare postmortems and reading a couple of books about like why people do game jams. And generally, it sort of breaks down into about 4 categories. Yeah, and as Coder 1000 said, yeah, slides will be available, and also we'll have like an outline available for you. But anyway, like the main thing, the like 4 sort of like divisions as to why people do this, and there's like a big uniting one. People do jams to learn, to prototype projects for work, to experiment on new types of games, and to adopt different roles, or possibly even learn different tools. People teach. So people can like teach design tools and process to new people. They are a really good way to bring people into the fold of game development. I've known like maybe 20 or 30 people at this point who have been interested in game design, or like maybe people who were in like QA who wanted to be a part of making games but didn't know how to do it, didn't know what the process was like. We're going to talk a lot in this presentation about winning game jams. So we're going to talk about ones that have a prize or ones that have a rating system. So this could be just you competing against yourself to complete a game because you haven't done one before. They're great for like bragging rights and war stories, but most importantly for us in this one, it's how to win when there's other people and when there's something on the line. And then of course, people do game jams to have fun, build team spirit. I think that this is a big one. We'll talk about that in a sec. And then especially, I think, to sort of like network with people and have a sense of like ownership of taking on risks and making decisions for yourself in a way that you don't necessarily get to in a standard work environment. But I think above all, the uniting factor that every single person that I talked to said something along these lines was they get me to push myself. They get me to act in a way that I don't in my day-to-day, and they get me to push beyond what I'm normally capable of. And I think that, Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you in a sec, but the one thing that I wanted to say here about why I think that jams are particularly important this year is because as people have said, already in the chat, we've been seeing some people saying this, that during the last 13 months, it has been incredibly hard to push ourselves. It's been very, very hard to muster the motivation to get things done the way that we had in the past, when we were able to attend cons and attend in-person events and show stuff to people and see the excitement in their eyes. And right now, we may actually be on the verge of being able to open those doors and see each other in person once again. And we're going to want to make up for some lost time. And not only that, but we know some people who are younger than us, students in high school and middle school, who may feel at this point that they've lost a year of their education. How can they get back on track? How can they learn a skill in a very short amount of time? I don't think that there's anything that I have in my life, and certainly like David Mann's quote from earlier resonates with this, that gets you further along than doing game jams. So I'm going to say that this year is probably one of the most important to invite new people into doing game jams and show them how fast that they can develop. Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add to why people do game jams?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best things about game jams is the relatively low level of commitment needed to be, attached to when you participate. Obviously, as gamers, a lot of us have some interest in creating our own projects, and that's great. And we always want to encourage that. But it cannot be, we cannot go without saying that it takes a lot of effort to make even small games, which is why a lot of veteran advice in the industry is to start small, finish something that has a pretty contained scope, and just focus on finishing something. And with game jams, it's a great place to do something like that, because there is a predefined set of time that everybody ought to be working on it, typically 2 days, but it can vary depending on which jam you're a part of. And what I think is perhaps one of my favorite things to come out of jams is that you will have a game that you will be able to say that you worked on. And I want to, segue into something that has become increasingly important to me. If you're someone like me who has ever had serious aspirations to make a living working on video games, you need to have a portfolio. From various online forums and feedback that I've seen in the industry, it's nearly impossible to get a job without some kind of showcase of what you've been doing. So something that's great about doing game jams is that you will always come out of the process with some form of game or some form of artifact that you can put your name on, and you can showcase what your abilities are and what you contributed. All these kinds of things are huge in helping you stand out from other job seekers. So I think it's really important that it be said that keeping documentation and keeping the artifacts that you produce, the games you produce, and showcasing them on like a personal page is a huge thing that you should be thinking about when you participate in something like this.
That's awesome. I wish I had done that so much sooner than I started. Ryan, do you have anything that you want to add before we go on to this next section? Otherwise, we're going to start talking about the pre-jam prep.
I don't think so. I just think it's, I guess the last thing I would say is it's a great way to get started. Again, the low time commitment is a great low stakes way to get started with practicing making games. So cannot encourage it enough. And if you don't, if you go into it and you don't like it, there's an easy way out because you only have to stick with it for a couple days maximum usually.
Dude, okay, so you that is the center of the bullseye there. It's basically like my own story is like I went from post college until like age like 25 or so, kind of like wallowing around, like wishing that I knew how to make games, but like starting on my own project was just like impossible to conceive of. Like, how do I do that? And it was just basically by being invited to work on a game jam sized project that like I got started. And yeah, it was a absolutely life-changing thing. So like if you know somebody who might be in that state, wants to get their foot in the door, this is the thing to do with them.
100%.
All right, so why don't you get started with part number 2? So this is the pre-jam. This is where I think that you have the most capacity to make pure profit, because like once the game starts, basically everything is a trade-off. But in the pre-jam, if you know what to do during this phase, you can actually like greatly enhance the quality of your project. All right, so you want to start us off?
Sure thing. So we have this quote, let's think the unthinkable, let's do the undoable, let's prepare to grapple with the ineffable itself and see if we may not F it after all. It's some humor there for sure. I think, when me and Lane were planning this talk, we knew pretty much right away that this pre-jam phase was probably going to be the bulk of our most meaningful material, and most of the takeaways that we want from our audience, that we want our audience to resonate with, are probably going to be in this section. A lot of preparation early can save a lot of time-consuming decision-making later down the road. Just the very first step is identifying a jam that you want to be a part of, and it can be hard to do that. So we'll point you to some resources in a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go ahead and show those? Yeah.
Sure.
So the tools that I keep an eye on are itch.io and GameJolt. Actually, both have schedules. They're aggregating tools, so they people out in the world can create their own jams, define their themes, define their start date and their end date and all that stuff, and it'll show up on the schedule pages that we've posted here. So if you keep an eye on these pages, you can identify a jam you want to be a part of, and that is the very first step.
Okay, and then after that, like when you're thinking about what jam that you might want to go to, we had a bit of a peculiarity. We had discussed the possibility of creating your own jam. When would you want to do that?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to the motivations a little bit. So you want to think about why do a jam? You know, if you're just trying to have fun, you know, that's fine. But generally, jams are great ways to learn a new tool. Like I want to make a game in Unreal Engine, for example. Or if you're an artist, maybe you really want to practice your pixel art. And so if you have a specific goal in mind, and you're not seeing any jams that have themes or purposes that you're not really resonating with, there's nothing saying that you can't just make your own jam. You can either just get some friends together and say, let's make a game starting this Friday and ending on Sunday, and I'll work on this and you'll work on that. And like I mentioned a little bit ago, if you actually want to make a public jam out of it, you yourself can also go to itch.io or GameJolt and submit a jam, and strangers on the internet can just come and sign up to be a part of it.
Awesome. So we had a couple of things to keep in mind when you make a jam. So the first thing is, what if you're like learning how to use tools in this jam? Like we had one just 2 weekends ago. We decided that we had enough of this whole not knowing how Unreal works thing, and we decided to do that and learn some C++ over a weekend. So what were some considerations there? Like did we go to like a competitive jam and try to do that there?
No, that would not have ended very well. Usually, you want to have some familiarity with what you're working on if you have high aspirations. But if you're trying to experiment, trying to learn something new, you want to find something that's a little lower stake. No reason to worry about what others are going to think of various aspects of your work.
And then I had a consideration for like, what if you know a tool a little bit? Like we've done one Unreal jam, we kind of have a feeling for how to do them. At this point, we might consider joining a jam that is specific around C++ or Unreal. The thing is, we wouldn't win. In no way would we win. We're nowhere near experienced enough. But what would be really nice is, since there would be all of these people using the same tool in one Discord, we'd be able to ask questions to people doing that, and they would be all too happy to come back and answer those questions. So that can be a very good time to sort of level up from maybe like level 2 up to like level 13 real quick.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think it's been explicitly stated, but as you just alluded to, a lot of these jams do have Discords specifically built for them. So other participants will join in. There's a whole community around the jam itself. It's a great way to network, great way to ask questions. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not the time to be shy, right? I mean, you're trying to accomplish something. You're deliberately stepping out of your comfort zone just by signing up to be a part of it. So while you're in the moment, you got to make the most of it, right?
All right. So speaking of making the most of it, what if you are in a competition? So we had a couple of thoughts about like the sorts of jams to look for. So the first thought that I had on these is that winning a jam that has a competition oftentimes boils down to working towards the taste of the other people in that jam, or the people who are giving the prizes. Very frequently, if you look at the top games from previous jams, like previous Ludum Dares, they're all there for you to take a look at. You can get an idea of what's favored there. We'll talk about that a lot more in the coming slides. But there are noticeable trends that you can use to like be like, oh yeah, this is something that might actually be able to like make us some money or give us some like notoriety if we do this particular thing. It's good to have the team sort of gather together and understand, be on the same page about that sort of thing. Yeah, just cementing that first point. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about like things to consider with team dynamics. So in the pre-jam, you must, I believe, it is very important to have conversations with your team specifically about jams. And this could be true for somebody who's done no jams ever, or it could be somebody who's done many, many, many of them. This talk will always be profitable. What do you want to talk about during this? There's a lot of things that you want to get on the same page about. And luckily, during the pre-jam phase, you have the time to luxuriate and actually get these conversations done. First, you want to discuss, what do people want to get out of this? Once again, if I want to learn a tool that I'm completely unfamiliar with, and you want to win the jam, I am being an asshole here. Like we want to make sure that our motivations are compatible. Second of all, is you want to make sure that you have contact information, and especially backup information. I've had a couple of jams where somebody just like could not come to one of the sessions and didn't have anybody's phone number, so that they were just out the second day. They couldn't get a hold of anybody. And finally, we want to put together a working schedule. So, Ryan, would you talk us through like a couple of good things about like what a good working schedule looks like?
Sure thing. All right. So what you want to do generally is you want to spend the first couple hours of the jam planning who's going to work on what and when. You want to set up milestones, right? So you want to say, this is where we want to be on Friday night. This is where we want to be on Saturday by lunchtime, Saturday by dinner time, and Saturday night, etc., all the way up to the end of the jam, for example. So setting up those milestones will really help everyone come. It gives everybody a point in time to come together and discuss progress, and further into the jam that those go, you can start to make those tough decisions like what should we cut, what should we include, what do we prioritize, things like that. You absolutely want to account for the human element in these jams. You want to plan your breaks. You want to eat and sleep like you normally would, and you're really going to need that extra energy down the home stretch because, as you approach the finish line, your brain's firing at 100 miles an hour, and you are, everyone's trying to remain calm, right? So, having taken care of yourself up to that point will absolutely make a difference.
Next up, I think that one thing that is probably not ever overlooked, this is probably the first thing that most teams do, but you want to make sure that you know sort of like what genres are in the ballpark, like what might you be working on in the weekend ahead, so that you can come up with a project that everybody can do. And additionally, of course, you want to figure out like what are some reasonable commitment levels for everybody. So we had discussed a couple of items that I thought were very important. What are you most willing to cut? What are you least willing to cut? This will come up later in a big way because on Sunday, you're going to have to make these sort of triage choices, and you're going to have very, very, very limited time to think and make these choices. So if you preload with some discussion on what do we think has the highest return on investment and the lowest return on investment, you can make those decisions incredibly quickly and get your game published on time. We'll talk about a few things that we think are particularly high and low ROI, but it's going to be different for different people. We talked to some people who believe that because they're teaching game design, like core game design, to their kids or to their friends, they want to focus on the core gameplay loop. Meanwhile, there are other people who are very focused on a high level of polish. And for those people who might be building a portfolio piece or competing, they are very interested in making sure that the end-to-end experience is as polished as possible. And they might even work on things like the menu or the pause screen before they get to core gameplay, because those niceties actually help the professionalism and the game's rating more than the gameplay itself. So some very, very different things to think about here. Looking at some questions. Yeah, I think that this is a pretty high value set of things to talk about here because I like Sam hits the core of it. That is the absolute target that you want to go for very low scope. But then when it comes to the conversations on Saturday night and Sunday, preloading it with some discussion here is great. And like there are certain things like, again, like the pause screen, but also things like, do we want to have a timer, a scoreboard, high difficulty balancing? Are sound effects important to us? Like having those conversations ahead of time can save a lot of drama and keep people on the same page late in the jam.
Yeah, and I mean, these are the kinds of things that pretty much everyone is going to run into. I mean, things take longer than expected. In so many cases, you will almost surely run into the discussion of what do we need to cut because we don't have as much time anymore as we thought we would. So yeah, I totally agree with Lane. If we if we talk about what we're most willing to part with, it's going to make a lot of those conversations a lot more quick.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. And then this, not going to linger on this too much, kind of an optional thing, but it can be very nice to have an idea of like where everybody is each day.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about setting predetermined meeting times, and we both agreed that 3 a day is kind of a nice number. So if everybody agrees to meet Friday night at like 11 p.m. before everyone logs off, and then Saturday at 11 a.m. this is all for example, Saturday again at 4 p.m., Saturday again at 11 before everyone logs off. If you set those meeting times in advance and then just kind of let everyone break out into whatever their own comfortable work environment is between those meeting times, it's a great way to stay in touch, provide status, and remain comfortable during the stretches in between those meetings.
So I wanted to just very quickly touch on something. I've had a lot of experience with hosting jams at my company at Concrete Software, and there's a ton. There's such an abundance of QA people who got into the industry to like sort of get their foot in the door, to like start getting closer to their dream of being a developer, artist, game designer. But when they first are asked, would you like to be on a jam, they are afraid of being useless. Like they want to see the game development process and to see it like sort of us rip through a game in 2 days. But they are afraid that they aren't going to be able to contribute. So just a couple of quick thoughts. This can be particularly pernicious. It can be very dangerous because these people can have a hard time finding stuff to do, but then they can also burden the other people on the team because you as a, like, let's say a technical wizard, you're going to have a hard time finding jobs for these people to do. So you'll want to think about this in particular ahead of time. So a few things that you can do to help these people is because they are a resource and you can actually really enjoy their presence there if you think about a couple of things ahead of time. So figure out ways to build towards those people's strengths. I have the great fortune of having a few of these people actually being very good at writing or voiceovers. And so we virtually always at our in-office jams will do things that include NPC dialogue, because that can just take an infinite amount of creativity in and just reward us more and more the more time they spend on it. Also, and this one is a very high value point. If you come up with a list ahead of time of all of the things that every team has to do, these are things like submit the game, create the game's landing page on ldjam.com or on ggj.com. Make sure that everybody is signed up on the Jam website. There are so many like little things that you'll think of that people have to do for every jam, and we have some of those in a handout. That you can actually get a lot of value out of these people who may be worried that they aren't useful at all. So yeah, we'll hand that up. And then once again, there is a huge, huge hunger for creativity in these things. If you can, as a developer, strategize how to deliver builds quickly, if you can figure out how to put builds in the hands of these quote unquote useless people, they can start running wild on things like level design and like we said, dialogue, and also coming up with features that you didn't even think of. So this is another point that we sort of identified as being fairly high value, is if you as a dev can think early on in the process, how can I like produce a minimum playable build as soon as possible and make these people upgraded from sitting around wondering what to do to being active members of the team. So we like to get our builds out as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
right.
So just one last thing I wanted to interject there is like a different way of looking at this is that when people agree to be a part of a game jam, they all have an idea of what it is they want to bring to the table. Me being a software developer, I want to be a part of the programming. A friend of mine might want to do the art. A friend of mine might want to do some of the world design. It's good that everyone knows what they want to do. But then you're going to have gaps, and you need to know what those gaps are. Someone still needs to get sound. Someone still needs to go find music. Someone still needs to do a lot of the QA. Project management is a part of this that tends to get overlooked sometimes. And then, later on, someone's got to prepare the website page that you're going to submit your project to. There are a lot of things that aren't necessarily anybody's first choice of what they want to work on, but the tasks remain nonetheless. So people are going to want to talk about who's going to pick up which of those extra tasks in advance. That can definitely help as well.
All right, Ryan, why don't we continue on to technical prep? We had a few ideas as to things that you can check off before the jam even starts.
Yes, absolutely.
And I just want to go through this slide quick. We researched some of the most common technical issues. So this was of a survey of 1,931 Ludum Dare participants way back in 2011. And this might be a little bit telling. I think people were a little bit less used to doing game jams back then. But this was the 22nd Ludum Dare. So maybe there's no excuse for some of this stuff. But we found that it was 78% experienced a slowdown due to version control. And 8% of respondents decided to stop using version control due to those issues.
We'll definitely talk about this in a bit.
Yeah. More detail about what to do about this. Installers got in the way of 37%. And by the way, for some reason, they included installers and submissions in the same category. So 2 things to look out for. And then lastly, this one was apparently the single biggest cause of people not successfully submitting a project. 22% ran into issues importing art, and 10% said it caused them to waste a lot of time. All right, so I'll hand it over to you. What are your top tips here?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so collaboration is obviously a huge part of this. I think everyone has been young enough to try to share a project by passing a thumb drive. Probably the most easy to understand, but also the most antiquated and least technologically efficient way of sharing a project. But yeah, we'll talk about source control in a second. So first, you're going to want to pick a game engine. This isn't generally the time to try to build something from complete scratch. I know some people who are really looking for a challenge or wanting to learn something new will try to build something from scratch. And if that's your goal, then by all means go for it. But picking a game engine is definitely one step. Unity and Unreal are very common ones to use. A very important detail here for picking a game engine is to make sure everyone is on the same version. If someone opens a project and they have a newer version of the project or of the game engine than the project was created in, then the engine is automatically going to upgrade the project to be compatible with the new version. And then everybody else is going to have to upgrade their project or their game engine to even open the project, right? So if you take the time to make sure everyone is using the same version up front, you're going to save yourself the hassle brought on by that whole process. It's a loud keyboard you got there. So version control is definitely the way we would recommend sharing your project. This is obviously a bit of a sticking point for people who aren't quite as technically inclined. I know version control can be a bit of an abstract process, especially for beginners. But we definitely encourage you to try it. Again, this is a game jam is a low stakes environment. So being able to just run commands to copy all changes made by other team members is a huge time saver. So we would definitely say check it out. I know that in one of my recent jams, I actually got my entire team together. We sat on a call, and I set up the repository right in front of them, and I walked them through the process of cloning down the repository to their local drive. I walked them through the process of creating a new level and pushing it to the repository. So everyone has seen this process at least once before the jam started. I definitely recommend going through that extra step, even if it adds a little bit to your schedule. When the timer starts ticking for these things, you generally don't want to be seeing something for the first time. Right away create the repository and push that first commit containing the empty project. Make sure, again, go through and make sure everyone has the permissions they need. Everyone's added to the project. Everyone can run, push, pull, that kind of stuff. And we mentioned it on the last slide. A lot of people have had issues with version control, and a a lot of issues from version control can come from a lot of those hidden meta files that the engines will use to save like user preferences and all that stuff you really don't need. They aren't really a tangible part of your project. So the communities around engines like Unreal and Unity have worked together to build common like baseline git ignore files. Go grab those, because having a git ignore right away can really save a lot of version control hassle for sure. Again, before you start, you want to make sure everyone understands how they can import art. I know the slide was from 2011, and art import issues were obviously a big issue back then. But now 10 years later, Unity and Unreal have made it really easy to import art. Generally, drag and drop for most file types that you would use. But yeah, again, it's not something that you want to be seeing for the first time when the clock is ticking. So go through it.
Okay. And then I had a quick take on IRL prep. Just throwing this out there. I have no enormous expertise in this, but I thought we could all use a reminder. Basically, there's a version of this where you give your loved ones the talk. And this is coming from some folks I know who have done jams despite like having a family, and particularly having a family all sort of cooped up during 2020, 2021 here. What they needed to do was they needed to like have a conversation before the jam started, set some expectations, explain the duration of the jam and any boundaries that they'll be setting. And then I think maybe the most important thing, try to make up for that distancing and inconvenience that you do during the weekend. This might be something like bringing family members in and doing the jam with them. But if they're not interested, you'll need to find other ways to make things okay with them, basically, to make it so that this is something you can do from time to time without them ending up being distanced from you. Just a couple of thoughts. All right, so section number 3. Once the jam itself begins, everything sort of changes, right? So after this point, your time is not discretionary. You run out of this like pure profit phase that we've been in so far. Ryan, any thoughts about the start of the jam?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to planning. We'll highlight it more in depth. We've touched on some of it already, but it's obviously it's not what I call the glory work, where you're working on the fun stuff that people are going to enjoy, but it is probably the most important aspect. So we're going to dig in here.
I do actually like think that there's a little bit of a difference of opinion there, and I'm not gonna like make this a huge controversy or anything, but I wish that there was. I would love a jam where you just come up with an idea and then you're done, right? Like this is I think in a way the most fun part of it, and I dearly wish that I could go through the process of like coming up with jam ideas, and do 20 of them just in a row, and then like sort of pick the best one from those. Because like I always feel so rushed during this phase. Maybe I'll have to do a jam, like create a jam just for myself, and some people would be like, all we're gonna do is kind of come up with ideas, and then we'll talk at the end about how those would have gone. Because I feel like this is the part that I'm worst at. And has the most room to grow, because you have like such a tiny amount of time to make a decision that impacts so many people for so long.
Yeah, I mean, difference of opinions actually great here, I think. I mean, some people really thrive on the planning and the competitive aspect of things, and then there are people like me who just want to put the hands to the keyboard and get away from it. And, so to your point, some people really like this part, and then some people maybe really don't.
Just enjoying BitCulture's comment there. Okay, so start a jam. I think it's really important to break this down into like the different motivations that you might have for doing a jam. So we're going to start out with the one that I'm thinking about right now, because Ludum Dare number 48 is at the end of this month. It starts on April 23rd, so like 9 days here. We're going to talk about competition first. So a few thoughts on this. Number one is to think visually. You want to have your your occipital lobe carefully tuned for this if you want to do well in a competition. And here's why. Jam competitions favor first impressions. This is incredibly obvious if you take my advice and you look over winning entries from previous jams. Literally all of them. They are more visually impressive than other jams, and they have polished looking app icons, and they have polished looking web pages. So think about those. When you're thinking about ideas, think about things that will visually draw the person in, because almost all jam competitions are going to be won by the things that look the best. So here are some thoughts from somebody who actually won DevNAri, the compo, 2 times. And this is, by the way, out of a field of like thousands of people. So the fact that this person got first place twice means that he has a few ideas on what to do, right? He says, a great way to come up with an idea to fit the theme is to write down the first 5 things that come to mind, then toss them. Those are ideas everybody else is already thinking of and making. This applies to a sort of notion that I have about jam competitions, which is that you want to think about it in the same way that like Pepsi thought about the Pepsi challenge when they were like doing the Pepsi challenge against Coke. Is Pepsi a better drink than Coke? No, of course not. But Pepsi sips better than Coke does because it is sweeter, it's more citrusy, and it has that great like little bubbly first bloom in your mouth. So what you want to think about is, how do you make your game clever and bright and sunny and like nice looking? And what Chevy Ray Johnson is getting at here is that the top entries usually have an instant appeal in the fact that they're clever and they're not what the audience was expecting. If I could give one piece of advice to newcomers, it would be to make a really simple game. This gets to exactly the point that many people made to me when we were talking about this, but I think Sam Bastard has said it best recently. And spend all your time polishing it like crazy. Really polished games are addictive, impressive, and always popular. Visual polish of some sort always seems to give games a boost up in votes and makes them more likely to be clicked on by judges, especially in short games where 90% of the games have little or no graphics. Ryan, we didn't talk a whole lot about competition, but any thoughts on this before we roll on?
No, I mean, it sounds like it kind of, we've kind of talked about a lot of these points already. And, it's kind of beating it. We're going to beat a dead horse, you guys, because it's true. You need something that's polished. You need something that's complete, and that's definitely going to be more attention grabbing than something that's noticeably janky. I think one of the things that has always stuck with me is, very rarely do people tell you like what they like or what's good, but people generally don't hesitate to tell you what they don't like because it sticks out like a sore thumb. So yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we have an idea of how soon you want to have like your core features done, and then you can spend the rest of the time just working on that polish and hammering out all the presentation side.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So some thoughts on the teaching side of things. If you're bringing new people into the jam, well, first, I mean, these people already said it way better than I'm gonna. This episode is solid gold. It's the best interview episode they've ever done. When we send out this, like, type this into your browser right now. It's so worth the ride. This guy has so many good ideas. But to distill it down and really do this person a disservice here, he explains how he taught game design to his kids through these like short little things that are very similar to game jams. And the key is that you want to pick something that's at the level of your students, right? So for young students, like his kids, what he's going to do is in the background, he's going to do all the boring work that won't interest the kids. I want to see do I have another line here? I don't. So the thought is, if you're going to work with people who have never made games before, and you want them to be able to roll and do interesting stuff right away, that's going to hook them into game design, you might want to handle some of the game management scripts ahead of time, or do some of the managers that they aren't going to have any interest in at all. Try to make it so that things like that are abstracted away and they can get into the stuff that is at their level right away. And a big piece of this is, if you're going to use a game engine, the first game I strongly suggest to be something that's very with the grain of that engine. So Ryan and I recently went into Unreal for the first time. And our game is a physics-based racing game. And the reason it looks cool is because we leaned into the default post-processing stack. And the reason it feels good is because we're using their nice, buttery smooth physics and terrain generation. Like, we just went right into the grain and actually felt great. And we were so proud of what we did after that weekend. So some things to think about on teaching. Now, if you're trying to learn and get some personal development done, the one thing here is, and you're going to know, you're going to know much better than we are what you're trying to learn. So all we have to say here is that you have to communicate with your team. You have to be on the same page as them. And it's best if all of you are going in to learn something together. They can provide motivation for trying new things, but it adds stress and it adds challenge. So you want to make sure that you are on the same page. They can clash with other people's goals. Special note is you want to scope really, really, really small for these. Ryan, how much in the way of features does our racing game have?
Not a lot on top of what comes out of the box.
Yeah.
You know, we were really proud to just have like 2 tracks and then 2 cars to choose from. And yeah, I mean, that again took half the time probably.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound like much, but it takes, you know, more work than you expect.
Yeah, scope very small. One thought that I had while going through this is I've known some people who have done game jams for the sake of entrepreneurial prototyping. All right, so in this, I mean, oh, David, if you want to jump on to the call and talk to us about MMORPG game jams, you can feel free. Yeah. All I'll say here is that, like, you want to do a whole lot of research on what you're doing before you jump in, and somebody during the jam should be thinking of like ways that things could go wrong while they're doing it and posing that to the developer. Don't have a lot to say on this. I've done it a few times at Concrete, and it's very important, especially if you're going to make something that's going to be created in a jam and then put into a live environment, like evolved into an actual feature, that you have somebody thinking about, well, how can the users exploit this, or how could things go wrong once you deploy it? And lastly, a lot of times people go to jams to have a good time. I'm not going to tread on those people at all. I'm going to give them a little bit of something here. I personally think that the best way to have a good time, and I could be wrong, I don't want to say that this is the only way, it's to scope small and then prioritize interacting with other teams. If you have time to help other people and to actually like go and play other people's games, the amount of gratitude that they'll give you for you paying attention to their games, for their like labor of love, it's going to be way disproportional to the amount of like work that you're doing. So I would say that if you're there for a networking purpose, do as little work as possible on your own game. Like, do something that's small, that's very short, very sweet, and then go and enjoy the room. To me, that's how I have the most fun. Ryan, what do you think? How do people have how do you have fun at a game jam?
Yeah, for sure. I think the social aspect is a huge part of it. I mean, we kind of have a little bit of a niche hobby, I think. You know, again, there are a lot of gamers out there, and a lot of gamers have a natural like curiosity towards making games, but not very many people actually stick with it. So finding people who are like, you know, at least serious enough to get involved in things like this, and you know, establishing connections like that is a huge helper for me to stay motivated to work on my work, because you know, all the affirmation and the validation of your good ideas and stuff that you can get from other people goes so far in helping you stay energized to work on your projects. So I definitely, you know, when I go into a game jam, I am actively looking to work with people I've never worked with before, because I think, you know, generally we you know, we're all looking to have a good time, and when people have a good time together, you know, people are open to staying in touch and you know, helping each other get excited about, you know, the things they're working on outside the jam. So I absolutely think that the social aspects are a huge part of it.
And this is a big piece about, and by the way, I'm realizing that here we are at the start of the jam and we only have like 30 minutes left. So let's rock it after this point, buddy. But this is something where it's so key to have that conversation about motivations at the beginning, because you want to figure out where you're at on this scale. Like, if you are here to network and play other people's games and help others, like, you are a rock star. But at the same time, you're actually paying a bit of a cost because you won't have every last minute to milk that polish on your own game. So it's very, very nice to have an idea of where you want to land on that spectrum before you start.
Yeah, and I mean, that could be even an added task for some of the people who are not sure what to do. Maybe they just go around and find other teams and say, hey, come check out our game, and then maybe play their game too.
Dude, yeah, ombudsman is a pretty sweet role, and if they can come in, like, bring other people to be a fresh set of eyes on your game, that can actually help a ton. All right, but let's roll here. So start a jam planning. You had some great points on this. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah.
Here?
Okay, so we talked about this earlier, even though I don't think that was a part of the plan. But
if we hit something early, you can feel free to just sort of like buzz over. I'll just keep up with you.
Yep. So start with the a lot of jams have a theme. I don't think we've touched on that yet. But a lot of jams have a theme that you'll want to build your game around, and in competitive jams in particular, how well you stick to the theme and how creatively you spin the theme can have a huge part of like the score that you get at the end. But overall, it's about leaving an impression, and so you want to find a way to take the brainstorming you did earlier of like what kind of genre you might want to make or what kind of setting you might want to make. Things like that. You don't need a theme in mind to kind of come up with, I don't think. But then naturally, when the theme does come out, you do want to find a way to tie it into some of those concepts that you might have came up with earlier. Once you kind of have the idea of what kind of game you want to make. You want to identify your key features, your must-haves, things that you are not willing to ship without. You want to talk about what you're willing to cut because it's going to come up. You want to think about how you're going to teach the player to play the game. If you leave it to the player to just click on the keyboard and find out what does what, there's going to be an added element of frustration early on as they kind of stumble. And you might not always be there to explain things to them. You want to establish your milestones. So again, where you want to be by Friday night, by Saturday afternoon, by Saturday night, things like that. Set your meeting times. Everyone's got to agree to this. And yeah, we recommend 3 a day. Version control essentials. So I've already seen in the chat that people are again getting sharing strong opinions on version control. I get it. It's a hassle. It really is. And Unreal especially, even more so than Unity. So many hidden files that you would never touch as a user of the game engine. But the engine uses them on your computer and does various transformations that you'll never see, and it's just a headache. But I just really encourage you to use version control if you're willing to put the time in. And so some tips that can make your version control experience a little bit easier. Everyone should have their own branch. Everyone should make their own scene in Unity or level in Unreal that is their sandbox. So if they want to experiment with dragging and dropping items into the scene, creating a terrain, if they want to experiment with any aspect of level design, they do that in their sandbox level. No one touches anyone else's sandbox level. This will help prevent merge conflicts for sure. No one touches anyone else's sandbox.
Yeah, so I jumped ahead a little bit. Yeah, so during the jam itself, once we transition from picking our idea, how do we best use the time after that? Hand it back to you in just a sec, but I thought this was a cool quote. The only thing jams are, or should be, is a tool to force yourself out of your normal working patterns. And where are we ever going to see this?
For sure, I agree 100%. I mean, for the third or fourth time or whatever, this is a low-stakes environment and a short-term commitment. So this is a great time to get funky with it and kind of try something you've never done before.
Cool. All right. So we were just talking about scheduling. Why don't we get pretty fine-grained? What do you do with scheduling during the jam itself?
Yeah. So I just want to interject a disclaimer saying this is all relative. Just being upfront about that, because everything that we're presenting here is experience and opinion driven, but at the same time, time constraints might differ from jam to jam. So you can kind of tweak your approach depending on how much time you're given. Because I've been a part of week-long jams before, and in that case, maybe you spend 4 days on a feature or your features, and then 2 days on your levels, and polish on the last day, for example. But yeah, as a general rule, try to have your core gameplay loop complete or mostly complete by halfway through the jam. You're really going to need that extra time to create your gameplay content and do your QA and your polishing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Stick to the schedule, and by this we specifically mean attend your preset meeting times that you should have agreed to in the first place. Take your breaks, get your sleep. You're going to want to build your project early. The earlier you can get an end-to-end experience built, the earlier people can start doing QA, doing level design, stuff like that. I mean, the playable state of the game is like obviously one of the biggest like log jams that can affect downstream tasks.
So when should you I forgot that at this point here. Yes. I think that everybody's gonna look at you sideways at this point. I think that the level of evangelism about treating yourself well has reached such a point where you can't get away with trimming sleep on Friday night anymore. But I'm always like, come on. Is it okay? Is it okay to work through the night on Saturday night?
Put as much time into it as you want. I'm just saying, I'm the kind of guy who needs my sleep, right? If I'm not getting 8 hours, I'm going to be not doing my best work on Sunday morning. But that's just me. So
there you go. So tell us, when we have this idea of an end-to-end build being very important in certain contexts. So why would you care about making the end-to-end build more than polishing the core gameplay loop? Why would that be important?
I mean, presentation just goes such a long way.
Yeah.
It's hard to overstate how people will just receive your project just by so much as glancing at it, let alone taking the time to play it. So things that I always try to do, and I definitely have done enough game jams where I kind of have my own little framework for this step, but include a title screen. It'll allow the game to just kind of be in an idle state, and then players can just start the game whenever they're ready. I really like to include a pause menu in case people like to or need a chance to step away for a second. Pause features can be implemented prior to player control. I know a lot of maybe I'm stating the obvious here, but I know a lot of learning resources I've seen on Unity's learning pages and whatnot, they just have the player controller listen for the escape key to be pressed and stuff like that. That is not a required thing. You can create your own independent invisible objects that listen for pause input. And that's what I pretty much always do. And then termination of the application, I would say try to put this in your title screen. If you have termination mapped to the escape key, and someone just presses it trying to open an inventory or something, and then the application just closes, that might be frustrating, and then it might be frustrating for you as well because you have to open up the game again. It just takes some time. So that's just kind of a gotcha I try to advise people to be wary of for sure.
Yeah, David hit me with a really big surprise. He actually told me when I was talking to him that this is the first thing that he does. These 3 things. The more he's done jams, the more he's realized that this is really if it's your first impression, it's your last impression. And it makes life better. The pause menu makes life directly better for players, regardless of game quality. So he actually prioritizes getting these things done and done right before anything else. And that just kind of really opened my eyes because I have always gone in with a sort of idea of the core gameplay loop is the most important. And in a way it is because without that you don't have a game. But these show the player that they are valued, and I think that they do pay that back with regard to being evaluated on portfolio or for competition.
For sure, and it's not hard usually.
yeah, you're kind of just doing the same thing that you've done before. So get good at these things. I would say that, like, for this other side, if you're like prototyping, if you're teaching people, you might want to like do these things ahead of time or bring them with you as a framework from a previous game, and actually like prioritize the gameplay, for reasons that we've talked about before. So, what do you cut? Yeah, please go ahead.
This is my favorite part of planning this talk with you. Is like I just out of the blue, I was like, what do you cut generally? So this was probably the most fun I had planning this talk.
And this was actually like the biggest learning moment for me, I think, working on this, which is that you can sort of preload so much of the like philosophy and chin stroking of the game jam into the pre-time. So we come up with like a few thoughts here. I mean, number one, any low priority features that you identified earlier, that's basically just free time for you. We found that when looking at top games among basically every competitive game, this is like Game Maker's Toolkit Jam, Ludum Dare Jam, things that Epic does. A short one that's just a couple minutes long but complete, feels like a great experience from start to finish, is much better than a longer and longer game. Additionally, this is another thing that I sort of have had to really wean myself of, is I am very tempted to do the 1980s arcade or NES cartridge move of making the game longer by making it harder. And that can add depth, but there are much better ways to do that. If you add high difficulty, then anybody looking at your portfolio or looking at your competition will be turned off if the game is too hard for them. And then lastly, just something to look out for, any sort of elements in the game that have to be where you have to come up with an interaction with every other element. Particularly for puzzle games, you want to have fewer elements that are more cleverly used. Any thoughts on these on things to cut before we move on?
Yeah, so I do have a note here. Sound effects are something that I commonly see fall off the radar of people. Sound is a huge part of video games. You can't understate or overstate the importance that it has in providing player with feedback with what's happening. So I know that sound, like a game can technically exist without sound and you can have your end-to-end experience, but really try to make the time for it, because again, the presentation value added there is immense. So try not to let sound be something that you cut. And I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because I've definitely fallen victim to letting sound fall off the radar completely, but it's not something that you want to let happen.
I think, I mean, once again, in our like reviewing and research of like high performing games, sound was like across the board something, and we have a little bit of research to show about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ludum Dare audio is one of the categories you're scored on, so that's an easy 0 out of 5 stars if you don't have it.
Okay, so things to not cut, again, you can identify earlier, you can save yourself time. Instructions, absolutely vital. Once again, if you are presenting, you need this. But here are some special return on investment considerations. In the 2011 survey, almost everyone who included sound and music were happy that they did so. And not including sound was rated as a top regret. I think it was the 4th highest regret that people had. I want to read some comments here. Yeah, SFX are easier to add, says Marty, as you're working on a feature, and more difficult to add in the end. Yes. And it's so easy to get basic sound in, no excuse. Yes. They're so free, so easy. Do it. Now, I was talking about difficulty earlier. If you want the feeling of depth, there are ways to cheat it in without making the game harder. Don't do it by making the base game harder, unless that's something that you really want to do, but realize that you are sacrificing in accessibility and you are sacrificing in your competitive score. Instead, add something that lets people self-identify, self-serve themselves difficulty. I have been absolutely hooked on adding score or timer elements to let people choose to post in the comments, oh, I got this score, or oh, I got this time, see if you can beat me. And people do it. People do it in LD Jam. But if you add high difficulty, people complain about that a lot, and people can't bring it home to their families because their families can't play a game that hard. So go easy. There we go. And the last thing to bring up is another competitive thing. Over 90% of the top 10 entries have some element of humor. So if you have people without something to do, see if they can inject some writing or something to make the game funny. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep. And of course, if you are competing, fall back on your research about what sorts of games win this competition. All right. Lastly, idle time. What should idle teammates do? Pull up the whiteboard, get out the sticky notes, come up with tasks that other people should do, play the game, do QA, design levels. Once again, inject style and humor, and then prep the project for submission and the web page, and gather for you sounds, font, graphics.
Yeah, idle time. Yeah, idle time is definitely one of those things people don't always anticipate. So these are just some ideas for what people could do with that.
100%. Yeah, anticipate during the pre-jam that there will absolutely be idle time for certain people, and that those people should have tasks in the can ready to go. Yeah, and then of course, this is the infinite one. There's always more help that you can give to other teams, and fortune will smile upon you for this. All right, so here we are. The light is dwindling. The midnight oil has been burned. We're at the end of the jam. Even my best game, however much I polish, has programmer art. Let's see. Where are we? Oh yeah, Ryan, you were going to take us in here. So tell us about.
No, we're still burning some oil here. This is the home stretch.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to build early. Right. It's one of those things where this is not something you want surprises to present themselves in, because it's literally the most important thing is being able to run a submission. So you want to build early. I've seen recommendations commonly be in the 3-hour time frame, just to get the team a mostly complete build, and everyone can just, everyone who's not actively working on programming or whatever else is needed for the home stretch can do their best work to try to find any last second bugs, this is not the point at which you want to be adding things. This is where you're trying to fix what is in there. You want to add a submission early. You can add subsequent submissions, but you cannot add, generally, depending on how strict the jam is, you cannot add submissions after the time limit. So submit something that you're happy with early, like in maybe an hour or so. This can help relieve a lot of stress, knowing that even if you don't get your final build done and uploaded, at least you'll have something. It's one of those many psychological games that you got to play with yourself to keep yourself effective.
Brian, I have kind of a weird point to make on this one. So if you'll forgive me, way back on like the second or third ever glitch GGJ, you might recall it's the one where there was like 128 people and the routers were equipped to serve 16 people internet.
Oof.
And so it was real bad. And we ended up being on a Wi-Fi that was going real slow. So one thing that we did was on day 2, we submitted. And what we submitted was like day 2 of 3. So on day 2, we submitted. And what we did was somebody just submitted like a 400 megabyte movie file that they had on their computer. Okay. Because we knew ahead of time that we were going to run into submission issues. And what that let us do is figure out, it takes an hour and a half to submit here. Holy crap. Now we know when we need to actually start the submission process. So like this is absolutely something to think about ahead of time, because if he hadn't done that, we might have failed GGJ. I think it was like 2016 or something.
Dang, that's crazy.
All right. So, moving on, game webpage. I think you had a lot of interesting things to say here.
Yeah, so I mean, these are things that every submission page must have. It goes back to presentation. So yeah, you have some good points in here early about like if you're stuck trying to think of what to add to your page, you can always look at the pages of previous successful entries and see if they have any elements that you haven't incorporated yet. go find some good ideas. There are a lot of good ideas out there. But as for your page, the must-haves are down in the key features sections here. You need screenshots, preferably video of gameplay. Just a screenshot of your title screen is probably not going to tell the player much of anything about your game. So show people what they're going to be playing. You need a summary. So what's your setting, what's your premise, and what are your win conditions. We touched earlier about teaching the player how to play the game, and that is important, but it's generally not going to be especially comprehensive. So if you spell out for the player before they even jump in what they are going to be doing and trying to accomplish, it can help set them in the right mindset going in. Remember to list the controls. Think about how, in the old days when you'd get a new video game in a box, it would have the manual and stuff like that. Just having the controls listed somewhere is helpful. And modern games have control, like pages within the pause menu for controls, whereas that's maybe a little bit more involved than you need to get with a game jam. So just list the controls on your website. Credits, you always want to be recognizing yourself and your teammates for the hard work that they put in. So list every person who was involved, list what everybody did, include asset packages you might have used and links to them. This is all about appreciation for people doing work that you didn't have to do yourself. And I always try to link to the personal pages of my team members as well. It's all about that cross promotion, right? We're all trying to help each other out. So if someone's looking at my profile, they can easily get to someone else's profile just by clicking on the links that are right next to mine.
Dude, so on my next jam, in LD Jam, we have a person who is from the marketing department from our company who wants to hop on and do the jam with us. And I am so excited to have a marketing person on the team because we do so much here. We put ourselves through such hell to get these games done. And then what benefit do we get out of them? Well, we get portfolio pieces. We get to compete, all that fun stuff. But I don't think that we ever do enough. I always dash off these web pages and stuff just in the last half hour. It's the last thing I want to be doing. I'm not creative at that point. I just want to be done. Yep. And I think having somebody and again, this is a great thing for just idle people to do. If they can start thinking creatively about how to make this thing cool, have this thing be part of the experience, it's gonna do so well. And it's gonna be a great piece that you'll be able to show people basically for the rest of your life. You will not regret time spent on this.
100%.
All right, so here we are. The sun might be rising, or the sun might be setting on the final day. Who knows? But basically, here we are, post-jam. You can't stop the future. You can't rewind the past. The only way to learn the secret is to press play. And this is where we're at, because the best thing you can do at this point, after you've recovered from being a gelatinous cube, is actually go and play people's games. So post-jam, you're going to play some games. Good opportunity, and I think that Martin is way better than this that I am, making time to play them at the event. And this is such a wonderful, angelic thing to do as a person, because other people are going to be hungry for feedback and QA, and this is going to be so appreciated if you can do this. However, once the jam is over, oftentimes people will be a day or two afterwards and thinking, man, I just did that, but it doesn't really feel like I accomplished anything in a way. Like you've made this thing and you have this sort of war story of going through it and you feel awful. So you obviously did something, but you don't get any validation from what you did. And if you go and play other people's games on stream, it's the most soothing reward that they're ever going to get, and they will appreciate it. I think that one of the most viewed videos on a lot of small YouTubers' pages is them playing other people's Ludum Dare games after the event. It's a great time to build your channel and get some really big kudos. You are honestly doing a great thing because you're rewarding people for their hard work, and you want them to keep going. So do it. Also, oftentimes in this area, at least, there will be either online or hopefully very soon offline play parties, and you'll get to go see the cool stuff in person. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, as Ryan was saying, a lot of these competitive jams have rules that allow you to get some advantages after the jam is finished. This is something that I like to take a day or two off of work after a competitive jam, because oftentimes you'll have like some lingering bug fixes or things that don't work quite right, and it falls within the rules of the competition for you to go in and add additional versions. You have to, on Ludum Dare, for example, you must keep demarcated which was your original build, but you can actually have a V2, V3, and oftentimes you're going to be rated on your V2 or V3. So this is something that if you really want to milk every bit of competition out, this helps a lot. And the other thing about LD Jam and a growing number of online jams is that they have a reciprocity-based karma system where you may have to read about it on a per jam basis. But since Ludum Dare is one of the biggest, I'll just say that the more interaction that you give to other games, the more ratings and reviews and comments and hearts that you give to other games, the higher you get boosted in their game finding algorithm. So the more you give to other games, the more you get, the more people will pay attention to your game. So it's great to host like parties where you and your teammates or you and some friends go and do a bunch of Ludum Dare games, maybe do it on stream to show people your appreciation, and then you'll get showered with attention back. And that's how you actually get enough ratings to appear at the top of Ludum Dare. Next up, and I don't quite know the best way to do this, I just know that I've always benefited from it every time we've done it, is a post-mortem, because the learning is not done yet. What would you do differently? What lessons can you take to the next jam? But I'm really interested to see like what other people's thoughts are on the best way to do a postmortem. And then, as we've been saying, you're not getting paid for this unless it's a like monetary competitive jam. But you will get paid. The way to get paid is by archiving and showing your stuff. So don't skimp on that. The jam, like the jam website, is a place to do this, but also your own portfolio. Yeah, so you created something that's going to be all of these things, and you deserve for it to actually be done right. So don't skimp on this just because you're tired. Do it. Treat it that way. All right, folks. So we've been talking for quite a while here. If anybody has any questions, or Marty, if you want to talk to us for a little bit, feel free. But otherwise, thank you so much for sitting through our talk. Ryan, any closing thoughts?
For sure. I mean, thanks to everyone for sitting through it. It was definitely longer than I think we expected it to be. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much you can learn from doing something like this. And hopefully that was evident with all the things that we were talking about. And certainly, if anybody has any other tips that we didn't address here today, or any questions about more details on anything we talked about, please reach out. We are throwing our contact info in your face. We'd love to meet you for sure.
Yeah, folks. Once again, thank you very much. And much appreciated to Martin for keeping this running and for giving us this opportunity.
For presenting tonight. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey,
okay.
man.
All right. Thanks so much. That was a great talk. We'll give people, I think we should like chat for just a minute or two and give people time to maybe post some questions if they have them or anything in the chat. Yeah, I cannot, I mean, you guys made some great points, and I think that you can't emphasize enough that last one of like taking screenshots and doing videos if you have time, and just like taking that credit. And even if you're not, I'm really bad about adding that stuff to my website or like uploading it anywhere, but having it for later is something that like the jams I've done it is like invaluable, and the jams where I haven't done it, I always regret it. I'm like, oh man, because I think one of the things about game jam games is they don't often live as long, right? You're not maintaining these games, you're gonna look back at this like a year later even and be like, oh, I don't even think I can compile that, right? Like, so you definitely want to take the time to document it while it's still running. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, if I can bully our marketing guy to like do like a The Office style little mini documentary on us and pull us aside while we're doing it, God, like all that stuff that like documents like the process and preserves what you did is because like I don't know about you, but I don't have like a lot of like big tumultuous like drama or battle in my life, you know, and going through jams is like these are really like some of the do or die moments, and I feel like I want more ways to sort of preserve those stories, and what you're talking about is something I would love to like research more, like how people have done it, right?
And I mean, to touch on what I said at the very beginning, I mean, if you're somebody who is aspiring to break into the industry, a strong portfolio is a must-have. I mean, you talk about ways that make it easy for recruiters to just say that this candidate doesn't get the job. I mean, not having any examples of what you're capable of is one of the easiest things that an HR person can see for a game development studio and say, I don't think so. So, yeah, I mean, again, if you're serious about getting in, you got to have a portfolio.
Okay, Ryan, you're going to have to take this question because this is the dividing line that cleaves my soul in twain. I cannot choose here. I love them both. What jam is best, strawberry or grape?
I would go with grape.
Okay, here's the thing. I think it is like less tasty by itself, but it pairs better with a great deal more things. So I think I would choose your side.
Huh. Cool. We don't have to fight. At least not over this.
Well, except with David. You have to fight David.
I don't want to fight David. How about you, Marty? What's your choice?
You know, when you first said it, I was like, "Oh, strawberry is the obvious choice." But it's then you actually kind of convinced me a little bit because I agree that grape tastes better with cheese.
Like yeah, okay,
so,
yeah, yeah. I find myself running out of grape faster just because I do it with more things.
I almost never put jam and cheese together, but when I do, it's always grape.
Dude, like that, and like nice like sharp cheddar or something. God, it's actually really good.
I was gonna say I saw the trailer for the new Space Jam movie last night. So
that's way up there. That might be better than strawberry for me.
It looks quite different.
All right, folks. So it looks like a short question section. Yeah. So back to you, Marty.
Yeah, I mean, so you guys didn't really talk about like the kinds of competitions. I think like so Let 'em Dare has like this pretty rigid format that they do like every time, and then like other jams don't. I mean, like the Global Game Jam is like definitively not a competition. Like they don't really do, you know, they're like, this isn't a competition.
Right. They have those something that we didn't touch on at all that I think is kind of interesting is like some organized jams like Global Game Jam and some other ones that I've been a part of is they'll have like these sponsors and they'll be like, oh, you can be eligible for prizes if you incorporate this asset or something like that. Yeah, just another thing that I think is kind of interesting. So yeah, those stretch goals can potentially modify your project. And Global Game Jam is one of those jams that does things like that. So that's kind of why I thought to mention that there.
Yeah. It becomes it's interesting because it's like I don't even think well, no, they do. It's like they're basically distancing themselves and saying like, you know, we aren't a competition, but like our sponsors might, you know, if you want to participate in our sponsor competitions, like, you know, maybe they're a competition. Like.
Loose term for competition, but yes. And there's one more story that I kept forgetting to mention, and I know that people have been jumping on all sorts of opinions with source control, and I was going to mention this, and I just outright forgot, and I knew I'd forget. But when me and Lane were working together a couple weeks ago, Friday and Saturday, we're like, oh, this model's really cool for a car. This model's really cool. These textures would go great on our landscapes. And we're just adding them. And Saturday morning, we can't merge. And we're like, what's going on? So it takes us like a couple hours, and I finally look up our repo in Bitbucket, and we were just using a free repository because we're not going to invest significant money on the hosting of our small 2-day game jam project, and we had exceeded the 2 gigabyte data limit for free repositories. And so we're like, oh crap, what do we do? We can't just revert because all that history is in there. So we're not actually like reducing the size that we've used, and we blew it by a mile. I mean, like we were like, what, Lane? We were like over a gig over the limit at that point, weren't we, or something like that? And so we're just like,
Unreal are no joke 10 times as big as they are.
So I mean, after like an hour or two, we're just like, screw it. And we made a new repo all together on Sunday morning and just proceeded from there. And we're like, no more adding huge files. So yeah. If source control wasn't scary enough for you, make sure you're watching the size limits that might exist.
Mm. Going back to a question that you asked, Marty, which was about like what to do about like competitions outside of Ludum Dare, because obviously that's what I talked about the most because I know it the best. That's part of why we tried to sort of be generic with our advice to like do research. Because I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned recently, which is that like people who go into these very frequently don't spend a lot of time studying what wins them. And if you are going into some sort of like the Motorola Championship of like Unreal games or something like that, like you can oftentimes look and see if it's the third one that they've done. You can study what the previous winners did, and that will make you do substantially better than you would otherwise.
Makes sense. I think a lot of those jams have what I consider ringers. Like it's like people that they already work in whatever framework. Like a lot of the jams are organized around like a particular, like they're doing this thing, or your intent is to use like X framework or whatever it is, and then the person who wins them inevitably has already been working in that framework for some like 10 years or something, and they're the ringer.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if like for those brand ones, if it was the majority that were won by ringers.
Yeah, for sure.
I tend to assume that there's ones like that have like more of an indie spirit, but I'm sure that the people who are at the top of things like LD are honestly like people like me who have been in the industry for a while and want that like sort of feather in their cap. And I'm sure that those are the people who are doing battle in the top 10 every time.
Well, I'm not seeing a lot of new questions. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I lied. Sam Besser says, do your jams generally involve multiple programmers? How did you usually go about splitting up the work? Do you lay out the base game together and then try and split things off? Or do you hand off major systems to each programmer and just figure out how to smooth things together later?
Ooh, I like his use of the word smoosh.
Smoosh things together later. You're right.
Yes. Yeah. So this is definitely like a big deal because in a small project you are much more likely to sort of like bump into each other. I think that this is something that once you sort of, I don't know, it probably helps to know the other devs a little bit. But if you can sort of figure out like, I'm sort of strong in like visuals or like UI, and then this person's really strong at like physics or like I don't know, like making like shoot 'em up controls or whatever. You can sort of like go in different directions and decide like what system to do. This is a big thing, Sam Baster, that we totally blew it in terms of not mentioning in the pre-jam, but this is absolutely a like profit center here, talking about this sort of stuff before you get going. But I do think it helps to say like, I'm going to be in charge of polish, and I'm just going to work on like special effects right from the start or something to get out of other people's way, even if that seems ridiculous to prioritize. If it helps you get out of the other person's way, it can save hours, as you're saying. Oh, and I think that Peter has just a wonderful point here. Zedo Viker says, like all competitive things, there are people who are always experienced in the craft. And I think that, as we were talking about, like it's a bummer in a way that if you're like new to game jams, you're not going to even have a chance at getting towards the top. But that just means that you are in this environment with people from whom you can learn a lot. And I think that in my case, it's probably been more good than bad. I would say I've really like relished the opportunity to like learn from these top level people.
It's super fun. I think it's interesting because like a lot of jams. I mean, you can go back and like look at all the Let 'em Dare entries from 10 years ago or whatever. I mean, you can really go back and same for Global Game Jam. And there's so much knowledge, like so much built up, like different ways of doing things, and like I mean, it's like an insane amount that you could never absorb all that, right? Like there's like and I occasionally think like this is an opportunity that is lost because I just never look back at at how many great jams. It would be cool. It would actually be a really fun project to like do a thing where you could make it into a podcast or some kind of like weekly or even daily thing where you like just look at a single game jam game every day for like the next years. Probably you could just look at one game jam game and like just play it and then pick it apart. Maybe 10-minute podcast done. Somebody do that.
Couldn't agree more. Dude, like I was just imagining, like I don't know if you're familiar with the like speed running phenom Summoning Salt, who does these like world record progressions on jams, but just like dramatizing the like stories of a different team or two going through the jam and like racing to do the top. God, you're so right. Like there are these all dramatic moments where there's so much like skill and hacks and like weird stories that go missing. It would be a great thing for somebody to start in on.
Well, thanks again. This is a great talk, and there's obviously a lot more we could talk about related to game jams. It's just a huge topic for sure.
Yeah, I know. Like everybody had so much to say. Special thanks to Sam, Zach, David, and Mark for giving us so much information to go off of. Appreciate it, and thanks again, Martin, for the opportunity.
Awesome. And we can obviously continue this conversation in Discord. Everyone who wants to can migrate over there. And I'm going to stop the stream. I'm going to end the stream. So
Coder 1000 just has a question about if this conversation will be recorded. I don't know if I can speak to that, but Lane, where can we point them to copies of our PowerPoint and our checklist that we prepared for this? We did build like deliverable resources for you guys to kind of use and reference.
Yeah, my arch nemesis Peter Yang just said, yes, all streams get saved to the IGDATC YouTube channel, and he said that a quarter second before I said something. So good job, buddy. You win this time. Additionally, you can find the archives here as well. And yeah, trying to get through a lot of information real quick. Glad we have those replays.
And I'm going to copy a link to the correct Discord channel into the chat there, into the stream. So that's the Discord. Whoa, there's some weird flashing was just happening.
Lane, did you have the links to the handouts too?
You are a smart guy. In fact, that's what that flashing was. I was just alt tabbing so I could
gotcha.
Game Jam cheat sheet there. And also, so I could give people our talk outline here.
Yes.
This is great. I have to figure out like what's a good place to post all these links because like there've been like some really nice links tonight. I think.
And here is a kind of here are the slides. Yeah. We'll send the links your way. So whatever you decide, you can get them up, whatever which way.
Cool, awesome. Thanks again, and everyone have a great night.